6 or 7.
Alright, hello everybody and welcome to the Dusty Auspex Season 6, Episode 7. I'm not going to give you a super fun intro today, because we've got a lot to talk about. There's Warhammer Fest, there's Kill Team Elites, and our big topic tonight is Preparing for War, Episode 3, Understanding ITC. All the way down the table we've got Fabio. I'm not going to give him a funny intro, we have no time. And between Fabio and I, we've got two of the top 10 ITC players in Canada, Matt Dushnisky and John Kilcullen. Welcome guys, how you doing today?
Great.
As good as can be, yeah?
Yeah. Sneaking in there at number 10 myself.
Yeah. No, we found out just before the show that these guys were 3 and 8 as of like last night when I checked to set up all the hype posts.
Yeah.
Then we checked 2 hours before today. A couple of events come in. Now they're 5 and 10. You gotta be feeling a little chip on the shoulder.
The grind never stops. I'm motivated. The fire's back.
Still number 1 in AM, so I don't.
That's all that matters.
We've got goals. Okay, if you have any issues with the audio on tonight's show, please let us know in the chat. Sometimes I can't monitor these things. Let's get started. The first thing, we've had a big weekend with Warhammer Fest and a ton of reveals. I'm just going to hit you guys with some topics. Give me your reactions real quick.
Okay.
First things first, that AdMech transport and tank. It could be open-topped. It's a little D-Day boat. What are you guys' thoughts? Did the AdMech really need something like this, or is it just sort of too much?
I mean, they definitely needed a transport of some kind. I don't know if they should look to World War II for their inspiration.
That's immediately what I
I
thought.
worry, like Logan brought up the fact that those guns on the sides might actually be very expensive stubbers, which is going to add like 20 points to that model, which will make it useless. That's what we worry about right now.
All right, Matt, what's your reaction?
I worry that it will have no place next to the termite drill. Given the versatility that the termite drill offers you, I'm not sure if there will be a reason to take that. Is there a name for the boat yet?
I haven't seen one. I could be wrong.
Okay, but yeah, the little D-Day boat. I'm not sure.
It's called the hover thing.
The hover thing. Yeah, the magical hover thing.
Like it's literally a hovercraft.
Reactions for the hover thing. Fabio, hit me.
Well, it's kind of same as John. It's a World War II inspired 41st millennium tank. I agree that
I mean, it looks cool.
it does look cool,
yeah.
but
But I don't think it's going to function.
I don't know.
I mean, who knows?
Really, yeah.
I view it being too expensive.
that's the thing. I think if its point cost is okay, and you can not have to pay all these extra points for weapons, and it just can get places quick.
Sure,
Sure,
on top too.
Open top, yeah.
Well, depending on how many points it does too. If it has like a rule like reducing charge range, that would be
Well,
great too.
that's,
Something
that
like that.
immediately it's.
So what about the one that's actually enclosed? It's like looks like a tank.
Yep.
I mean,
tank tag.
Even that looks like an old World War II tank that got stuck in trenches. But I mean, I don't know.
Dark Almond in the chat agrees with you guys. He says, really cool
Donald
fake
Duck.
AdMech needed a transport badly so long as the point value is right. I kind of agree. Like, okay, so...
I mean, the drill is your transport, and the drill is very good. So I don't know if they really needed a transport.
It's just the Forge Word model, so it doesn't really have as much exposure. But
Super good.
Check it out.
Super good.
check out the
vehicle.
drill.
yeah.
The termite drill.
So maybe the big question is, how easily will it be to convert this into drills?
That's a great
Right?
question.
Like, that
Alright.
might be where we're at.
Not so easy.
Next news item from Warhammer Fest 2019 is the Chaos Knights getting models and a
Right.
codex. This is fresh after the Castellan nerf that we saw, the
spicy.
big FAQ
Super badass.
2019. Like, the models just look gorgeous. Do you guys think we'll see them on the tabletop?
Oh yeah.
100%.
With
We already see
Without
Chaos
a
Knights on the
doubt.
table, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
So, I mean, you're going to see them, now that people don't have to convert, more people will do it. Because there's a lot of people that don't.
Chaos Knights are already like top tier, especially if you're like a Renegade player and you're just looking for some like. I know the Renegade player's been looking for something, and I mean, I guess this isn't Chaos Renegade, this is Chaos Knights. If you want to be pure, you shouldn't be, but if you want to be pure, Chaos Knights are going to be garbage, but if you want to be with a bunch of other stuff, they're going to be absolutely amazing. They look great, their weapons are going to be nuts.
And they're their own classification, right? There's 2 of them.
And
Right?
they have great stratagems, like even stratagems right now that 2 CP reroll all hits is amazing.
Yeah.
Such a good stratagem.
Smelly Blue
Especially
Fishboy, sorry.
Yep.
Smelly Blue Fishboy in the chat says, remember the 2 new Chaos Knights are their own special classification. They do not build into any knight like double Gatlings. Thoughts, reactions? Is there something you want to see from these knights?
I like it better that they're going more unique with these Chaos Knights rather than making them just Imperial duplicates,
Yeah.
which is definitely more interesting to me.
I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I worry that like that one there kind of looks like a Warden. Was this like weird power fist? Is that a chain gun, or is that some sort of different weapon that we don't know about yet?
I don't know Imperial.
All right, so it looks like some sort of it looks like a Gatling cannon, but it probably isn't. So if it has specialized weapons that are different, I love it.
It looks more like a high-powered autocannon.
Yeah,
of some
like
sort,
if it's
you know,
if it has any kind of decent, so long as Games Workshop doesn't troll you and give you like this 100-point gun that has random shots, random damage,
random AP.
Yeah.
just give them like a flat 3 weapon. Oh, that'll be so good.
What
I
I'm
love
really
it.
curious about is just with any new Chaos faction is they have so much synergy with their different like Demon Engine keywords, their Chaos God keywords. That the new combos that they're gonna come out are just gonna be insane with the new book for sure.
Yeah. Dark Almond in the chat says, I think Games Workshop panicked seeing how many Chaos conversions were out there and rushed these to milk the players, but they look awesome. Smelly Blue Fish Boy adds different special gun. That makes sense. They probably want some new stuff with the Chaos Knights.
I mean, you don't just want like a carbon copy of these ones are Chaos, but you can just use them. Like they want to make money. It's a company, so they want to make money. So that's how you do it. And as a Chaos player, you want something different. So they're giving you what you want, so don't complain about it.
What are those little knights? The little
Armigers?
armigers. Like even they got
Calvin.
those, right? It'll be interesting to see what kind of guns they slap on those things.
Absolutely.
And those guys will be really cool.
New
actually.
army itch.
Literally scratching his throat. Alright, our next reveal from Warhammer Fest 2019 is everyone's favorite, the most exciting reveal of all, the Primaris Repulsor Executioner
Just
tank.
skip
Who's
it.
all stoked?
Just skip it.
We're
I'm
skipping
tired.
this
I
one?
don't want to talk about Primaris garbage.
Like literally another tank looks exactly the same, different top.
Repulsors are amazing. They are just so much better, especially now that the Castellan took a hit. I mean, if the Castellan shows up on a table, you're just gonna lose to your. They're gone. You're gonna lose 2 of your repulsors. 1 to 2 of your repulsors a turn. But if the Castellan isn't there, those things are money.
That makes sense.
You don't need that big gun on the top. Just
Need
get
to
rid
be
of it.
Tank with the flag keyword.
I don't know. It's another option, I guess, for Space Marines.
They need more options.
yeah,
I'm surprised
we
this
got-
doesn't have the lieutenant's keyword or anything.
Let's see,
on
some
that.
reactions in the chat are gag, boo, utterly hideous. I'm just gonna
Are
say
they talking
pass
about
this
me?
one. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
no. Are you a Primaris Repulsor tank? Do you fire
I'm
D6
about as
shots or
offensive
something?
sometimes.
Okay, that makes sense. Alright, next reaction. We talked about those Daemon synergies before. Ruin Storm Daemons. Now, these aren't explicitly announced for 40k, but they're Daemons. They're probably going to get more 40k rules. What do you guys expect to see out of these?
Do we have any estimations on the size of the model?
We do not. I have not seen any images like that put them to scale with other models. They look cool. I like the blending and the highlighting and the doohickey.
I'm still waiting for
It
it
looks
to.
like a Terminator
to
base.
there
yeah.
it is. Oh yeah.
I don't know. It looks like a.
Are these AOS models?
It looks like a close combat. Another thing that relies on charges.
Yeah. They've been announced for Age of Sigmar, but they're demons. They're gonna get 40k rules, so I figured it'd be worth like bringing them.
So
up,
they'll
seeing
have
the
a
reactions.
6-up invul, 3 to 4 wounds.
I mean, it depends on what you can stack on top of them. It depends on their rules, obviously, their point values. But
Well,
Yeah.
if they're like pseudo demon princes with character keyword behind a bunch of plague bearers, that could
Yeah.
be nasty.
yeah, if they don't have character keywords, I mean, it's kind of just like it's another option. Chaos has so many options right now, so
Yeah. The Blue Fish Boy in the chat says it's Termi size. 30k
Yeah,
models
there
lately
you go.
have not been getting 40k rules, so don't get too excited. That is entirely fair. Something that legitimately excites all of us here at the table, though. Click the thing. Contrast paints. There we are.
Oh,
Like,
shit.
figures this would be announced right before we get a couple of tournament grinders who are constantly working on new armies on the stream. But how excited are you guys for the contrast paints?
me personally, I'm very like I'm painting an entire Nid army, and the contrast paint looks. If it works, it looks like a real shortcut to actually getting through the earlier steps, like the base coat and the first couple highlights. It looks great, so I would love to. I'm gonna for sure buy probably every single paint on that board there.
It almost looks like GW failed at the airbrush paints and found a new method to basically bypass airbrushing,
Interesting.
right? Because
Oh, totally.
think
yeah.
about it. Like, I mean, for me personally, I hated the first few steps to getting stuff to tabletop quality purely because you had to use a brush, you had to slap your paints on, and now I found airbrushing, which was basically remove that, and now I've enjoyed painting again. My armies look better on the table overall, and then now these paints that basically skip the airbrush phase.
Yeah.
Arguably, they do that. So
I'm thinking like what you're saying is it's just going to make you enjoy the hobby side more, because for me sometimes you just it's like you
it's
say
daunting.
We're grinding.
Exactly.
Like me and Matt are grinding, and we are just constantly painting stuff, and me more so than him.
Well,
sounds like a you problem.
my issue is I keep buying new models, and I'm typically rebuying like used stuff, so I'm constantly stripping and then repainting and converting to make things work. And by the time I get those to tabletop quality, the next event's up and the new FAQs dropped, and I'm changing my army again. It's a constant cycle of
that's why you don't sell
reaching the
models
bare
anymore,
minimum.
ladies and gentlemen.
Never
sell models.
Sell your models.
yes.
Unless you play orcs, then you sell them 3 times.
It's gotten bad enough that even on one of our local stores they had a paint night, and then on their Facebook banner they took a photo of my half-painted army for the banner to come in.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And I was like,
yeah,
I get the hint, guys.
All right. Like, I know I'm excited because I have no time in my life. I don't just go into a coffin here at 40 Below Studios. I get out there and do far too goddamn much in my life. So I'm just excited to skip like half the process and still have something that isn't going to offend people when I put it on a tabletop. But I got one more question, and I'm going to direct it at you, Fabio. I know previously in our Preparing for War series Part 2, Painting a Winner, we talked about painting models quickly and like how important it is to have an airbrush. Is that still a recommendation you'd give after seeing the contrast paints this weekend?
Without testing them myself, I would say an airbrush is still something I would lean towards. But with the reviews and what people are saying about these, I'm almost on the fence. Like it's pulled me that far over that I could go either way. Like I'll be picking them up. I'm gonna try them, and see what comes of them. Like by all means, I mean, but these are not the be all end all. Like that for me is not a completed army. But like you said, at the very least, like you've got some transition in your color. You've got multiple shades already on model. So like when you know, even if you're testing models, you could slap, just like you can spray them white, you can slap a color on them, and you've got 2 or 3 colors, so it looks okay versus just bare plastic.
The airbrush is always going to look like this little guy right here. Like, I don't know if they can see this, but this is like great airbrushing, and you're not going to get that from that paint. So I think the airbrush, you can do it way faster with an airbrush, and you can make it look way better.
I'm just excited though that like the hobby side of the game is also progressing as well as the competitive side, which is just.
Well, and it is everywhere, and it's nice. For me, it really didn't matter. Like I know there was a place for both, but it is nice when you're able to, especially when we're the ones like we're streaming. So just like being behind the camera and being able to look at more color, and people being able to distinguish what's happening because of that. I think it's a nice thing to have.
Nice.
So, no, it is good. It is good.
One more question at you from a TO perspective. I'm not actually sorry. I was going to say I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Do you think this is going to change how we judge painting at events? Like, not for Planes of War, June 1st and 2nd, Holiday and Airport Pull Apart, buy your tickets now. But
free plug.
But like in the future, once like Twin Eagles and next year's events start hitting and we see more models that will have been painted by contrast paints, will that change our rubrics? Like, what do you think?
No, not at all.
Okay.
It's another tool in the toolbox, right?
Right.
Like, you don't penalize people for finding maybe quicker methods to get maybe a little bit of a better overall look. But it's no different than people that just airbrush their armies. Like we talked about last week. Just if you can, or even if you get your army painted to tabletop quality, you're not going to win awards with that. It's just tabletop quality. Whether you airbrush to tabletop quality, whether you use these to tabletop quality, whether you airbrush to tabletop quality, it's all still the same. Like you'll be certain ones will allow you to blend better, certain things will allow you to shade better. But at the end of the day, you still have to put in work and time to get to the level of, painting, call it expert. So it really doesn't matter, and it would never. Having another tool in the toolbox would never change the rubric.
That makes
in my
sense.
opinion, anyway.
Professor Grant in the chat says still sitting on 2,000 bugs to finish. I hope that's 2,000 points of bugs.
Rip.
Good
Somebody has a problem, yeah.
Good lord, Professor.
No.
Dollar Grumman says, can see this leading to a lot of mediocre armies, but if it gets more armies painted, that's awesome. I have to think we'd all agree, right? Like, we all want
absolutely.
more players to play against.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if there's how many times you guys hear, I can't play because my stuff isn't even like primed and
I
stuff.
can
You know
think
what I
of
mean?
so many friends actually.
It's-
There are so many people in this hobby that buy stuff and never paint it, and I find that to be pathetic personally. But
Matt's
that's just me
looking
throwing
down.
it out.
Matt's not looking at the camera.
It's a lot easier to.
If you buy something, you should paint it, and this is going to really help.
It will help.
I mean, if you you should always learn how to use an airbrush. I wish I knew how to use an airbrush. I just don't have the time right now. But this is just another way of getting armies on the table.
On the table.
It'll look decent.
And
So
the
how can you complain about that?
The other thing is the price point. So
Yes.
the rumors I was hearing were they're around like $12 to $15 a pot, but they're larger pots. But by these pictures, they are. They are the same size as the washes. It looks like.
Yeah.
And so for me, everyone just like John kind of said, $15 for a pot is expensive. But think about how much time you're saving. You don't have to buy a base coat, a wash, and a highlight now. You
Yeah.
literally have that all in one paint pot.
Yeah.
So
It's the price
it's
of
the
3 pots.
it's the price of 3 pots,
You
and you're
also
saving time.
Don't need a dry brush, an edge highlight brush.
Right.
You just need one brush.
One brush and one thick coat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I like even that to me is very appealing. So
People on the internet complain about everything. This is just another tool you have. If you want to complain about it, go for it.
but the thing is, if you want to complain about it, don't use it. Whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like you don't have to
it's
use
not
it.
for
It's
you.
just not for you exactly.
if you find $15 expensive, I don't know what you're doing with your life. But
I'm definitely looking forward to all the memes of the first person to spill their contrast paint. Right? It's gonna be a thing, absolutely,
Yeah.
right? You thought gun oil was bad?
They'll just
No,
have like
wait.
they'll edit and have like a river of dollars just falling off the table.
that's
Speaking of people,
you get over to the tub and you drop that toaster in there.
Speaking of people complaining on the internet, we've got Homer Sayer in the chat giving you a shout out on your tournament win this past weekend. Congratulations to that. And
hold on.
Smelly Bluefish Boy booing you. Oh!
Thank you, Homer.
That's what I want to see.
Wow, that wasn't planned. That's funny.
And of course, Smelly Bluefish Boy is bitching about it, but I'm sure you guys will mention that to him later. Last page for our Warhammer Riffest reveals. This is sort of the catch-all page of stuff that's not like 40k, but close enough. We're going to talk about like the Bandai, the big action figure, the Funko Pop figures, and Apocalypse.
Yes.
Which doesn't have like necessarily new models, but it's got those trays and cards and stuff. So, out of these three, what are you guys the most excited for?
The chibi models.
The chibi models? Yes.
I think
That's legit.
those are pretty cool.
Skip that, yeah.
I'm actually I want one of the Bandai ones. I want to strip off the bowl on the top of the tournament trophy and put that guy on there.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I'm pretty excited to do that. But otherwise, like I heard Apocalypse was just a bust.
Really?
Yeah, I heard there's just a whole bunch of new rules. It's like every Apocalypse edition. There's new fancy templates. There's new fancy rules. There's new books you have to buy. There's this one like now you need D20s and I don't know one other.
D12s are in
Is it
the
D12s?
image, yeah.
So like you know what I mean? Like there's just a whole bunch of new stuff that you're gonna get roped into buying. And like for the 1 or 2 times you might play Apocalypse,
Yeah.
it's kind of like I think getting clever with the core rules and just going from there is you're really no worse off, right? Like for the amount of times you're gonna play Apocalypse, like I'd be curious to know what the price tag is on this thing. Really, like that would.
It's weird to me that they ignored the lessons they learned from Kill Team. I'm a huge Kill Team evangelist, as you know, but like Kill Team, you buy a book and you use everything else you already got, and you can play the game. You don't need templates, dice, cards, etc., etc., etc. It's just one book and you're done, and you're playing 100.
How crazy was the last you guys probably didn't play the last Apocalypse, but so the last Apocalypse they had those massive templates that literally was 4 quarters of a pizza pie, and you had to like interlock them because it was so big, and then there was that one that had like 5 smaller templates that rotated on each other's axis like centers, and those things cost like $50 for these 3 templates, and the edition lasted maybe a year, and then this edition came out and just got like written off, and then there's no templates, like the Apocalypse is invalid,
Oh my
and just like the
God.
whole thing was just a waste, and you're just kind of like,
Why
whoa.
did you do is.
Yeah, like it's crazy, like stuff like that. It's just I don't know.
It sounds like end times.
It was a version of End Times for
Yeah.
Apocalypse. Yeah, I think the name is fitting now, but then the bobbleheads, we got 8 bobbleheads that are going to be part of our prizes for best general, best sport, best in show, and player's choice. So that'll be pretty sweet. So we'll have a few of those things. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of them. I like my I have the collection for the Avengers, but that was just a thing. But I don't know. I think that unless they have rules. Or they can be terrain pieces. I mean, I don't know.
I wanted to
But the
use those
chibis,
as
I like
dreadnoughts.
those.
Yeah, and the chibis too.
The chibis are pretty sweet. I like those ones.
John, hit me with your reaction. Anything about out here, anything on this screen that I'm going to gesture to vaguely on the monitor appeal to you?
I don't give a fuck about any of that.
You're
You
first.
heard it here first, folks.
Blunt and to the
Not
point.
40k, man. I don't care.
Yeah, that's the
It could be though. It could be. You don't know. They don't have rules
Fish
yet.
boy in the chat is getting an action figure, and he says, "You know that APOD box is going to be way too much for dice, a rule book, and some trays." I'm kind of inclined to agree.
Trays. What kind of trays are you talking about?
Well, they've said that movement. It's not here in the image.
Oh, there's movement trays?
Trays will be coming with the Apocalypse.
You know where else you can get movement trays? Northern Lights Terrain, and they're gonna be way cheaper.
One of our sponsors for 2019 to 2020,
Yeah!
Northern Lights Terrain. Check them out at northernlightsterrain.com. We'll be talking about them again later. All right, so that's the stuff from the Warhammer Fest reveals. We've rolled through that real quick. Next up on our topics list, although I think I'm going to sort of skip through this one. Well, first
We
off,
almost should just have a separate episode for Kill Team.
yeah, that's entirely fair.
You and me just. But anyway, we can
Yeah.
go over this stuff. I mean, the first point is actually was a pretty big one with it. Your choice.
Yeah, so in the chat, we've got Simon1022 saying, I'll just buy 10 contrast pots instead of an Apocalypse box. Yeah,
Oh,
That's a good bet.
yeah.
fair.
I think there's value. That's
Yeah.
you might even get some paintbrushes in there for the same price.
Right? But yeah, Kill Team Elites, we've seen some early people with reviews and reactions. We'll have a more detailed episode on this coming up probably next week when we're talking about Echoes of Eternity Month 3. And I'll have had the book in hand for a while.
We've already
But,
month 3 coming up. Oh my god.
Right?
And we're doing pretty good. We have Josh and I were just talking about it earlier, and we have 25 players already submitted
For month 2.
for month 2.
Yeah.
So numbers are still holding strong, so that's good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, big thing with Elites, all the factions are getting new models. Some are getting new commanders as well. Some of the stuff, the reactions that are coming out that really interest me are we're seeing the high AP, high damage weapons being costed higher than in the core rulebook and commanders. To me, that just makes a bunch of sense because Elites, there's so many models with 1 wound. There's so many models that or there's so little AP already. I don't want to be seeing some huge damage stuff on a multi-wound model like a Terminator because it's already so hard to take away that model's 1 wound.
Yeah.
So it makes sense to me that you'd cost it higher for the different.
Yeah, honestly, I appreciate the fact that Kill Team is a way to get people into 40k, but it is its own game in its entirety. So trying to compare points in one to the other, I really never do. It's its own game. Its points are costed to make sense within its game. The models, however, as you collect more of them, then you look to the next thing, which is 40k. So that's the only part of it. The models are the only thing that carry through. Rules wise, it is what it is. It's a different game. It functions on its own. It works well within itself. It has its own synergies, and I don't know.
Yep.
I think it makes sense.
Very quickly, as predicted on this show in previous months, Adeptus Custodes are showing up in Kill Team Elites, and they've got an exception. They can field 2 models instead of 3, the minimum of 3, to be matched play. So, hey, how good does that sound since you have to paint a whole Tyranid force in 2 weeks? Being able to play the game with just 2 models. It's gotta sound good.
I mean, you could just play 40k with a 1 Warhound Titan.
Legit.
If you want to be a man,
Legit.
if you want to be a man, you
But
need
how
one
many
Warhound
pots of
Titan.
contrast paint is it to require you to buy to paint that?
Listen, man, you just get a black spray, a silver spray, and then you just
The biggest brush you can find.
Yep. No, it's the Custodians have been costed slightly differently than they are in 40k. Custodian Guard's 33 points, Alaris Custodians are 67, and then the Shield Captain shows up at 115-ish. So at 100 points, you can field either 3 Custodians Guard or 1 Alaris Terminator and 1 Custodians Guard. I think that's fair, because otherwise, we're talking about multi-wound models with huge invul saves and etc., But if I've only got 2 guys and you're running at me with 5 or 10, all of which have their own weight of dice, I think like that's going to even things out nicely. What am I going to do in a mission that has more than 2 objective points?
Oh man, it's the game's still always whether it's 40k or kill team, it's even Age of Sigmar, anything, it's volume of dice. So I mean, I'm still skeptical about having 2 guys on the field because in a blink of an eye they can be gone. So I don't know how much value there is. It's like, oh, I'm a big tough. So it's like, yeah, well, in 40k Terminator's supposed to be fucking the bomb, or at least a lot tougher than even a tactical marine. But how many times do you see a squad of 5 or 10 tactical marines mow down Terminators just because of bad dice rolls? I mean, it happens, right? So, I don't know.
I'm going to call it here first. My friend Michael, who plays Death Watch, is just going to mow down both of my guys with the frag cannon before they do a thing in 1 game before the end of the summer. So, moving on. Preparing for war. And we've had part 1 of our series for preparing for war, which is building a list. Your Salt Miners teammate Kyle Plouffe was on for that, talking about list of building philosophies. Real quick, I'm going to get your reactions. What's your mindset when you go to build a new army? Is it just checking what other people are saying is good and then tinkering with it, or like do you have benchmarks you want to hit?
For me, when I'm building a new list, I have to look at the meta. So I look at the meta, I see what people have, what people don't have. Like the meta in the ITC can be different than the meta here. If the meta here, before I started running Castlins, there were no Castlins here, so this guy could have fire prisms. The second I put a castle on the table, this guy couldn't have fire prisms.
Yep.
The second I remove the castlin, this guy has fire prisms again. Like, that's just
Weird.
So you have to look around at the meta first, and then you have to, like, if you are terrified, if you can build a list that can have 1 hard counter, but if that hard counter isn't here,
Then
you're
it's
good to go.
Yeah.
Like, my personal list that I was playing for a long time, if I ran into Custodes, these guys will table me so fast, but nobody plays Custodes here at any kind of level that I'm worried about. There are a couple people that play them, but they don't play in tournaments, so it's not something I factor in.
It's also from the meta, yeah.
So you start with the list, and you start with an idea, and then you look at the meta, and then you try and build a list for that, around that idea.
If you're playing in like a local scene, like for example, in our bunker busters that we have every couple months, there's only 14 players that get in. So us going to local tournaments pretty often, we know who all the players are coming in as, and we can expect which armies that they have. And this is around the time when the rumors of the Castellan going away were coming around. So I looked at the event list and I saw that, oh, I'm pretty sure no one here is going to be playing Knights. So I knew there wasn't going to be a Castellan at the event. And that's the first time that I brought out my Fire Prisms again.
Thanks.
For nearly a year. And it wasn't at this Bunker Bus. It was actually at the previous one where I came second to Ryan Block. Where we both went 3-0, but he beat me out on points for that one. So, yeah, so I saw definitely taking into account the meta. But when you're playing in ITC specifically, sort of like try to pick out a couple secondaries that you know you'll be able to score every game. So if you see an opposing army against you, and it's like really just frustrating you, you already have a set game plan before you even like hit the table, which always helps out too.
Subsequently, you can always look for how many your army can deny as well, right? To give you that edge.
We're going to be talking about secondaries in a second, but right now it's been about half an hour since we started the show, so it's time for a sponsor plug. We're going to take a quick second to plug Frontline Gaming. Since they run the ITC, I think it's appropriate. How does Frontline Gaming make things easier for us as TOs?
Well, they pretty much paved the way, really, in TOing and getting rules out and setting a standard just to play organized, to have organized play. And from there, you know, the guys at the West Coast with the Best Coast pairings, then they came on board and they collaborated, and now you've got an app that pretty much runs the show for you. Now, obviously, and it just keeps evolving. Like the newest patches have some pretty in-depth abilities now, and it's just growing. Like it's not what have they done, it's more what haven't they done to get us to where we are, and how we're able to enjoy the game, and people that come like fly halfway across the world to an event that know exactly what rules, what to expect. There's no confusion, there's no lost in translation. It's all very, you know, black and white for everybody, which is usually probably what used to be the toughest thing for for a game like this, especially when it's, you know, being translated to different languages for codexes, and everyone, you know, misinterprets or interprets things differently, and so they've done it all. Like
Nice.
So yeah, I don't know. There's no one thing they've done. They've done it all. They just made it all way easier for everybody. So as a TO, it's amazing.
And you guys have been grinders for a while now. It hasn't just been the last year or two. How has the scene changed since Frontline Gaming and Best Coast Pairings came along?
Honestly, I came back to 40K at the end of 7th edition, and this was really before I really knew much about the ITC, and it really started to blow up around the start of 8th edition, and that's actually around the time that me and John both really started jumping into the Winnipeg scene and playing tournaments.
That's when I started.
Yeah, and it's because like we heard about the ITC, and that's what really like gave me the edge to be like, I want to do this now. And that's what got me out of the basement, man.
If there wasn't an ITC, I wouldn't play 40K. I'd sell all my models and just say,
Right.
I'm gonna go back to League of Legends or something.
Yeah, right now.
I need to be competitive. Like I don't play
Yeah.
this game for a hobby. I don't play this game to make friends. I play this game because it's competitive.
He makes friends.
Make some friends. Yeah. I play it because it's a competitive outlet for me, and I have to have that. Like I was a track athlete. I did poker professionally. Everything I do is competing. I have to. I need that. So that's why the ITC was there.
Yeah.
Well, and I looked this up online before I even started, and I knew before I even bought my first model that my goal was to go to tournaments.
That's literally like us. Like I started by playing at Astro. You know, Astro in Winnipeg fizzled out, and there was no other tournaments. Then I started looking for stuff, and like I found the ITC, and then, you know, I went to like Arizona, went down to Minneapolis, went to Vegas, did a big circuit that year, and I was hooked on it, and just meeting all these crazy people,
Nice.
and it just grew from there, and that's why I have such a love for the ITC, because it's not just about the rule set, or, you know, the fact that it's competitive gaming. It's how enabling it is, and it's just like it's so for me, probably John, it's just stimulating to get that like fix. Now obviously I'm TOing more than I'm playing, but that's what got me into it, and that's why I just stand behind it, because of what it's done for me as in terms of the hobby. But
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. So, Frontline Gaming, they're one of our sponsors for 2019-2020, FortibelowGaming.com. Check out their stuff. They've been supporting us and making things easier for us for a while. We're going to take a quick sidebar because we got a great question in the chat that I want to run by you guys. Skellar987 says, I have recently started 40K with my wife. She plays
Perfect.
Ultramarines.
Nice.
I have studied what I need from my army, Death Guard, but I'm clueless as to which models to get her to grow her Ultramarines army. Any tips? She's got the Dark Targaryen box, No Fear. She's got a Repulsor. So you're playing Ultramarines. Where do you go after the Dark Imperium, No Fear, and Repulsor type purchases?
Well, the first question you have to ask is, what are you looking for? Like, what are you playing? Are you playing the ITC? Are you playing ETC? Are you playing book missions? Are you playing Maelstrom missions? Are you playing Highlander?
I think
Are you aiming for competitive, or do you want to come out to events that you guys run?
Yeah.
Because the answer is going to be different, but the overall, I would say you want to start with Gilliman. So
Yes.
if you do not have Gilliman, you need to go out and you need to buy Gilliman, because he's the centerpiece of that army,
That
and
makes
he's
sense.
functionally extremely good for Marines.
So let's say it's just kitchen table, two players, husband and wife, going at it on a Saturday afternoon. What's the next purchases then?
Gilliman
still
and
say-
Mortarion.
And Mortarion. Oh,
Mortarion
right.
for the...
Yeah, you gotta
that's
go at
good.
it. So Gilliman, probably another repulsor.
because
Double repulsors.
Hey, let's see if that new tank's worth anything, eh?
Yes, the one we just mentioned.
And probably some of that new stuff. The Shadow Spear stuff.
Right.
Some of that stuff is very good for denying deep strike, especially if you're playing Chaos. They like to drop stuff in your face, so it's
Yep.
basically just a 12-inch
Centurions.
get away from me.
Thunderfire cannons are a favorite of mine.
Thunderfire.
Don't
Thunderfire,
Man, those are-
Thunderfire cannons are amazing.
Yeah.
They're so good against infantry.
Nice. So, hope that helps you out, Skelly987. Thank you for joining us. Also, a quick shout out to our friend in Kelowna, Bizarre 40K Beast, coming out to Plains of War. Says he's going to win it. We'll see.
Hey.
You
Good
can
luck
buy
with that,
tickets
bro.
for Plains of
coming
War,
for you.
which is our most hyped event of the year. It's a 2-day, 6-game ITC tournament. Tickets available at FortibelowGaming.com. Make sure you come and give it your best shot. Check it out. Compete against these guys.
Is that
Not
guy?
that guy. These guys.
Is he from the BC Battle Brothers? Let's see if he answers that.
Bizarre 40k Beast, are you from the BC Battle Brothers? Let us know in the chat and I'll pass it along to these guys. No problem, Skeller. We're here for you. So, we're going to reset a bit. This is now part 3 of our series, Preparing for War. Part 1, we talked about list building. That was a few weeks ago. You could go back on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/40belowgaming, to check out that episode. We talked with Kyle Plouffe about like list building philosophies, what you look for when you're putting together a list. Do you build around minuses to hit, AP, rule of cool? What's the philosophy? Then recently we had part 2, Painting a Winner, where you want to paint up to compete for something at Plains of War. What are your tips for speed painting to get an army done as quickly as you possibly can? youtube.com/40belowgaming for you, sure, since we've talked about it on this episode. And now this is part 3. Understanding ITC and how to make the most out of your practice games. Now, because we haven't necessarily gone over it yet, ITC stands for Independent Tournament Circuit.
Yep.
It's sort of just a set of rules and missions, different from the one in the 40k rulebook, that are a little bit more balanced competitively. You'll see things like more objective markers throughout the map. You'll see things like it's much more streamlined in terms of extra stuff happening in the mission, but what it does have is secondary objectives. This is the big thing that makes ITC different from other tournament circuits, in that in each mission you're selecting 3 of your own secondary objectives that you're going to go for, and your opponent does too. So when you're thinking about ITC, you need to think about which secondaries you're picking and which you're denying. Our guests today are Matt Dushnisky and John Kilcullen, 2 of the top 10 ITC players in Canada, and we got a little image right here. I gotta set up you guys nicely. There's the player rankings for Canada up on the screen right now. ITC, we've got John at 5, we've got Matt at 10. Tell us a little bit about the grind it takes to get here.
You can go first.
A lot of practice for sure, and coming prepared to events too. So, like to do well at events, you gotta make sure that you're coming in hydrated, good shoes, good sleep, and of course you gotta play the game well.
That's really underestimated, and that's super important to be hydrated.
Especially around game 3 of each day.
Huge.
Yeah, I mean, like I see sometimes people constantly picking like low model count armies. Do you think that has an effect in that? Like, just there's less stuff you have to make decisions about, so it's a little less mental bandwidth. You're more relaxed. You can focus more.
Brain strain is huge. Like I used to play Yanari before the nerf, and like as my list was like it was pretty potent and had answers to everything, but how much brain power required to set up all these combos and contingency plans for all the different soul burst things, I would just be so done by mid game 2 that I would make game-ending mistakes, and that would lose me out of the tournament.
Of many of those game-ending mistakes.
Yeah, and then
his list requires him to play technically perfect. Like Yanari did not play itself. Yanari was,
and they're not forgiving.
Fucking hard to play.
No.
And if you make one mistake, you lose the entire game. Like just crushed.
It wasn't just Yanari; it was Yin Card Yanari, which was.
All right. So, first things first. How do ITC Champions missions work? Like, walk us through the process of pre-game. You're looking at this ITC mission. You got your objectives. You're picking your secondaries. What happens?
Well, the ITC is different from the book in that it's progressive. It's not endgame. There are endgame secondaries you can take, but that's the main difference. So you have to look at secondaries and understand that. I mean, secondaries will happen every turn. If you're scoring them, the primaries are happening. Kill something, hold something every single turn. Kill something, kill more, hold more every single turn. And there's usually there's a bonus point in there depending on your mission.
So by progressive, you mean like scoring is checked every turn.
At the end of every single
player turn,
and then at the end of every battle round, it's checked twice. So you have to account for that first, and then you have to look at your ITC Championships missions. And usually, you've probably discussed this in your list building section, but you've built your list. If you've at all thought about this game on some level using your brain, you should have thought about secondaries you want to pick and secondaries you want to deny. And if you haven't done that, you're not going to have a good tournament.
All right.
So you build a list like myself. I was using a extremely overpowered loophole thing that is no longer legal. that basically was to counter Eldar flyers and knights, and
I guess it's true. Yeah.
yeah, it was just to counter Eldar flyers and knights, and I built a whole list around how could I possibly beat this, and then it's based on these secondaries here, because Guard will give up secondaries like crazy normally, but the list I built did not give up secondary. It gave it 4 points. I just marked those right off. Reaper, just mark those straight off. Just give you those 4 points at the start. But after that, it was a lot more difficult. So you can build your list to get these secondaries or to deny these secondaries.
Yeah, like let's do like giving a more basic introduction to ITC missions. So there's the primary, where on each player turn you score a point for holding an objective and killing something, and these are things that these are in your power. So you just make sure you try to get those 2 points every turn, and then your opponent has the same thing as well. And then at the end of the battle rounds, after you have a turn and your opponent has a turn, you count who killed more units, and that person gets a swing point. So that's a point that only one of you can get, and that's where the difference comes between winning and losing. And then it's the same thing for hold more. So a lot of these missions have an odd number of objectives, and those are important to know. And then there's something called a bonus, which is unique for each type of mission.
It's always based on being somewhere on the map at a certain time.
Yeah, like you can have one in mission 6 is you need to have 3 characters holding 3 separate objectives, and then,
Crucible of Champions.
and then you get a bonus point for that. There's one that if you're, I think it's you're holding the center and 2 other objectives or something like that. Like there's, then that's
So maybe build a list with at least 3 characters if you're playing ITC. I've made that mistake before.
Well, I mean, if you're able to deny that, I mean, maybe it's not it.
Yeah, and then, I mean, once you show up to a table and your opponent shows up to a table, the first thing you do is you discuss terrain, if TOs haven't already done it, but you also want to come to a table and define the terrain, just to be clear, so that there's no feel bad when you're like, hey dude, that you don't get cover for that.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, quick sidebar. For Planes of War, is first level of terrain like
Blocking line of sight? Yep,
Is
100%.
that in effect? Okay.
That's
Yep.
an ITC thing.
That's an ITC thing. That's
So
that's not
then
about-
you would discuss your warlord traits and everything like that, and then you pick secondaries before you know what side of the table you're on, what map deployment you're taking. You have to pick these first, and you just basically get together with your opponent. You share your lists. You look at your lists, and when your opponent hands you his list, you look at it and you have to immediately think, can I kill a lot of this? Are there weak units in here? Are there weak links in here? Or am I just playing like can I withstand the damage that they're throwing at me? And it's a very balanced way of playing. There's a lot of options in here.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
There's kill options, there's mobility options, there's objective holding options.
Yep. So if we're starting, if we start at the top, it's Headhunter.
Quick second here.
Yeah. So sorry, you go ahead.
I'm just going to say very quickly, we don't have a slide prepped for this because I am a bad producer and I only have so much time before the show.
Yeah.
We are going to verbally run through all of the ITC secondaries, and you can go to the frontlinegaming.com website to download them and look at them yourself and follow along. You're about to say.
Yeah, so there's these secondary options. The secondary mission, what the purpose of this is that no matter what type of army you're playing or what type of army your opponent is playing, it gives you a path to victory. So there's 15 different secondary objectives, and for each of these you can score a max of up to 4 points, and they all have different ways that you score these points. And then you can score them and your opponent can score them, and you pick 3, so those are 12 points on your mission. So making sure that you give yourself a path to score your 12 points and do your best while playing the game to deny your opponent his 12 points are what's going to separate winning and losing the game.
Yeah, a lot of the top tables are going to be decided by a couple points usually, so you can win or lose games just picking the wrong secondary.
Right, and like these secondaries change the way the game's played.
It's
huge.
one more thing that allows you to lose the game.
Yeah,
Just
like for-
deploying wrong,
Yeah.
shit like that. Yeah, it's picking the wrong side just because you're.
I mean,
it's
you
where
have to practice these.
Yeah.
So you can see some of them you can customize to your list. Like if you're Eldar and you really have a hard hit and you have snipers and stuff like that, and you're hard to kill, Headhunter and Recon, you're fast. So
Let's read some of these
okay,
out.
so
Let's run down the
Headhunter
list.
is 1 point for every character that is destroyed in the game, up to a maximum of 4 characters. So you can kill any 4 characters on the table during the course of the game. You score your 4 points. Then you can take Kingslayer, which is you choose a character. And you basically mark that character, saying that's my goal, and you get 1 point for every 2 wounds of damage you take off of it. I believe, except if it's a vehicle, it's every 4 wounds.
Then keep it in mind with that. If you pick a character that doesn't have minimum 8 wounds,
yeah, you're not going to score.
You're denying yourself points right from the get go.
Yeah.
So they're.
The idea is to pick secondaries that you can max. So you don't want to pick a secondary where it's only possible to score 3 points.
Yeah, never short yourself.
You're shorting yourself. Yeah. So Kingslayer, you want to pick a character that is. You also don't want to pick Kingslayer and Headhunter together most of the time because they don't stack.
Okay.
So then we go into Mark for Death, which is you pick 4 models from your enemy's army that are power level 7 or up, and you get a point for killing each of them during the game. Now this also does not stack with Headhunter, Kingslayer. It doesn't stack with anything except for, I believe, Reaper.
That's correct, yeah.
So it only stacks with Reaper. So you have to be careful of what you mark with other secondaries coming out. Like the one right next to it, which is Big Game Hunter, which is you score a point for every model that has 7 wounds or more that you destroy during the game. Usually, Big Game Hunter points overlap with Mark for Death because they're power level 7, 7 wounds or more. You're sitting at the same power level, so you really don't want to Mark for Death things that you also want to have Big Game Hunter for. It's
unless their army is just littered with them.
Just all tanks, like an Imperial army or a guard army with just tanks.
Yeah.
Like this is good for that.
Yeah.
Titan Slayer is 8 wounds lost. You deal 8 wounds to a Titanic model. It has to have the Titanic keyword. For every 8 wounds you deal, you get a point. So for Shadow Sword, you're only getting 3 points. But for a Castellan, I think you're still only getting 3 points, right?
Yeah, they had 20.
Yeah, you're still only getting 28.
28, thank you.
You're still only getting 3 points. So you're looking for things with over 32 wounds, right?
So
max. Yeah, 32 wounds.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking for models with over 32 wounds to score this
to max out
that out.
So
Astreus.
if you knew you could kill that Castellan in one shot, hypothetically,
Yes.
but you only get your 3 points off it.
You never take Titan Slayer. You take Kingslayer.
Right. Okay. So all I'm saying is you would, if that was an easier objective for you to take, than something like holding all 4 table quarters, but you could at least you have a better chance of getting 4 points in that over the course of a game. Would you still?
I see your point.
You know what I mean? Would you still?
Yeah.
Would you rather say I can guarantee myself 3, or maybe squeak the 4?
I see your point, but the beauty of the ITC secondary options with the 15 different choices you can pick, there should be one
There's always something better
that you can get all 4
Yeah.
on.
No.
If you're in a situation where it's like you have to take the best of the worst options, usually that's how it feels when you play against Eldar.
He just doesn't like me.
So
Eldar flyers, what do you pick?
so just hypothetically, if you're limited to those 2,
sometimes like Yanara used to force you into basically picking secondaries where you're only getting 3 points max, because there was just so little that you could realistically and reliably pick against it. They're so great on pressure that you could not reliably take recon.
But realistically, I
Death
guess
Guard.
if you're guaranteeing if you feel confident that you can steal at least 3 out of 4 in each of your 3 categories,
I don't like that because I understand 9 out of 12 seems pretty good. But in my past 9 or so tournament games, I actually checked my scoring sheets before coming here. We'd be talking about ITC missions. I scored 11 or 12 every mission, every time.
Yeah.
So
it's very rare that you're going to be scoring. You're not going to be scoring near max on those, and if you don't, something catastrophic has happened, and you're probably going to lose that game, unless they also pick something bad, or you just both denied something. So that's Titan Slayer. Butcher's Bill is kill two models or units
in one turn.
You score a point.
Which you can get in your opponent's turn too if they're careless with getting models killed in Overwatch or in combat or something like that.
Yep, and then pick your poison is kind of a strange one. You take 4 keywords, so Psyker, Fly, Biker, Vehicle, Monster, Titanic, and you pick, you nominate 4 of them, and then you score a point for every one of those you killed.
Yes.
It's supposed to be good for Eldar, like a good one to pick against Eldar, but it ends up being not very.
But you have to select each of those units though, right?
You have to select
four
different
keywords,
keywords.
but then you also have to select the unit that falls within that keyword.
Yes.
So
it's not very good. It's not doing what it's intended to do, so people really don't take it. It's very
I was going to
very
say,
strange.
like, I play, if I may quickly, I
Yeah,
play
yeah.
Tyranids, and all of our big effective guys outside of the troop slot are monsters and psychers, and I've still never seen anyone pick your poison.
It's very poorly.
I almost
done.
think that they should have. It should have been you pick 4 keywords, and as long as you kill one of each of those keywords, you're not selecting a specific unit with that keyword. Like I feel they've doubled up there, and that's why that becomes very.
Well, also if you could just double them up, like pick 4 psychers.
It might just be because this one's a new
Yeah,
secondary to the ITC packet, and then people have not really familiarized with them. Like actually looking at this. No, I'm not gonna say anything. Never mind.
There are some you can take. Well, yeah, what are you gonna do? You're gonna take your psycher, fly.
Actually, well, I don't want to sell myself short, but I'm going to do it now. Anyways, this would actually be excellent against my list because you can take Psyker against my cheap Warlock Enclave that you can take out fine because they're actually not characters, but I pretend they're characters. I don't say anything unless I'm asked, and people don't know.
Oh, jeez. All right.
And I just move them in the backfield like a character, and people are like, "Oh, I was like, they don't. It's not a character, right?"
Yep.
Biker, I have MSU Shining Spear units. Those are easy.
Yep.
I have plenty of vehicles.
Easy.
But you have to select one.
Right.
You
Of
don't.
every-
Right.
of
You
all of them.
can't. So if you have 3 squads of Shining Spears, and
You just pick
and,
one.
and I pick squad 3, well, guess what? Squad's going to be the one that's going to be always behind the other ones, right? Like.
Right.
So you can do that with all 4 of those.
But then you are also, if you do that, and I am thinking, oh, I gotta hide these units to prevent you from scoring, then that's really messing up my game plan. Because now there's 4 different units I'm concerned with keeping safe,
Yeah.
and that's
true.
totally.
You probably just give up one though. I just like
well, no.
vehicle.
vehicle.
Yeah,
I have vehicles.
you
I have
have
bikers.
vehicles.
I have fly. I have psychers.
Except a lot of those are very hard to kill. Like how often do you lose a flyer and a fire prism in one game?
Almost every game that happened.
I only killed a flyer, not a fire prism.
You didn't try.
Oh,
Yeah, I didn't try.
Jesus.
I
Moving on.
actually didn't.
The
But,
Reaper.
Reaper is for every 20 enemy models destroyed, you get a point. So this is
That is
one
the
that you
horde
should-
go-to.
This is
The
one you
anti-horde
should pick
go-to.
against me. Like literally, just show up to the table, and I've already written in Reaper because I know that you're gonna take it.
Yeah.
And then I actually just mark you down for 4.
I see that one playing Tyranids.
Remember, tanks count, characters count, and this one does stack with the other secondaries, which is
Yep,
Not
stacks
normal.
everything.
Yeah, so it's pretty valuable.
Then you have behind enemy lines. If you have a unit that is wholly within the enemy deployment zone at the start of your turn, you earn 1 point.
It's called Recon.
Oh,
Or
well,
recon.
I
Sorry.
skipped it and I went to behind enemy lines. So you just start the turn with one of your models in your enemy's deployment zone. So from turn 2 on, if you
Yeah.
deep strike something.
really good with planes.
Yeah.
Really good with planes.
Why is that?
Recon, you have to have 4 units in 4 different. You cut the table into 4 quarters, and you have to have a unit in every single quarter. One unit cannot hold 2 different quarters, so you just have to. It's a secondary you pick if you're a mobile army and you know that you are going to push up mid and hold the mid board.
But it's nice you don't have to have a whole squad either.
No, you just
Right.
have to have one model from that squad.
So you
in
can
that
have
section.
a unit sitting on the middle objective in all 4 quarters.
No, you have to have. It's
No,
not,
but it has to be. You have to dedicate that squad
Yes.
to one. But I'm
Yes.
saying wherever you need it to go, it's
yeah,
like it's-
exactly.
yeah.
You just move mid board.
Yeah.
It's easier than it seems at first. Yeah.
It's
Like,
it's very good for if you have an army that doesn't really like to kill things, which is totally a thing. You can pick this and just count on scoring, just
Yeah.
pushing up,
yeah,
being durable.
That Death Guard guy is still listening. That's one to look at.
Yeah.
Death Guard, yeah.
Yeah,
I
Thurston.
Custodia, same thing.
Then we have the standard one from the book. I believe this is pretty much right out of the book, old school. You earn a point for first strike, which is killing an enemy unit in the first turn. Slay the warlord. So, as stated, line breaker. Have your model with your opponents in your opponent's deployment zone at the end of the game, and then last strike, kill a unit on the last turn.
Nice.
Straight out of the book.
Let's not skip ground control. What's that?
Ground control is my favorite one. You earn 1 point for every objective you hold at the end of the last battle round. So
This-
that is not progressive. That is end game scoring.
Yeah, that's
You play
one
for-
unique one.
Yeah, I love this one. Lots of people don't, but I just
It's great for guard who can move guard squads at the end of the game to score those clutch points, and that's like what helped Brandon Grant win the LVO, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually recon, ground control, and I don't remember his third one, but that was a big one. He just moved his units onto objectives at the end of the game, and boom, 4 points.
Right. 40k is not all about killing stuff. It's just
You can
could
actually
be about just
It's
standing.
about
somewhere.
playing the mission. Weird.
Yeah, it's about being in places that you want to be in at specific times.
Nice.
So then we have King of the Hill, which is an absolute garbage one that you should never take. But at the end of the
Hot
battle,
takes.
And now they're not only have to
Hot
pick
takes.
14 when you out of 14 when you show up to
so
events.
here's how this one
Yeah.
works. At the end of the battle round, the player who chooses his secondary scores 1 point if they have 2 non-character multi-model units wholly within 6 inches of the center of the table. Units cannot score King of the Hill and Recon or Ground Control or Engineer. So
Oh, dear.
it's a lot of words.
That's a lot of hoops to jump through.
And it's
It
a
just
lot of
doesn't
hoops.
stack with the other stand somewhere objectives,
And
which
you
is seems fair
have
to me.
Units wholly, like, if you want to sit on the middle of the table, your units are going to probably be either one unit with like a Plague Burst Crawler or something very durable, or it's going to be 30 models.
Yeah.
Getting 30 models to sit in the center of the table wholly within 6 inches,
Yeah.
that's tough.
My problem with that is
And then
you
it
have
doesn't
to do
score
that
recon.
4 turns
Yeah.
correctly, and that's tough to keep 2 units successfully in the center there.
And successfully all the way wholly within. Because
Yeah.
if you mess that up,
Because it's easier to do
you're
with
gone.
smaller squads, but it's also easier to kill those smaller squads. And
Also, you can't take recon with this because those 2 units are now no longer counting for recon, so you have to have another unit in there as well.
Oh.
It's really annoying. And then we have finally Engineer, which is another one of my. When it originally came out, I hated it, but now that I've
I
used
actually
a
don't
lot,
mind it
I
either.
really like this one.
not too bad.
So it's select 2 non-character, non-fortification units from your army to be your engineers. Starting from battle round 2, if either of the units starts their turn on an objective and ends their turn on the objective without making a shooting attack, a psychic attempt, or a combat attack, they will score 1 point at the end of the turn. You cannot score 2 points. Only one unit can score 1 point. You can score 1 point per turn. So it's actually, if you're building a list around not killing stuff, this is perfect. You find your durable unit that doesn't really have great shooting. I was actually just recently talking to Kieran about this, and he had like 40 points left over, and he was asking me what to add to his list, and I said servitors, because you can just make them as engineers if people don't have out of line of sight shooting, and then they just sit at the back on an objective, and
just
they
every turn.
value, just great value.
Or otherwise, they just block out deep strike. That's still
Yeah,
valuable for 40
they
points.
serve more than one purpose.
Yeah.
So it's a really great objective.
Yeah, I really like this secondary that they added because it gives life to units that wouldn't see the table normally in an ITC mission.
Yep.
Like, for example, Warp Spiders. A lot of people hate on them, and I can see why. They don't really seem particularly useful until you look at Alatok Warp Spiders being used as engineers with prepared positions turn 1. You're looking at a -2 to hit unit with a 2-up armor save.
It's tough.
It's funny that you say
It's a
warp
tough one to
spiders
learn.
are getting hated on because last edition warp spiders were everywhere.
That was before my time.
Yeah, that's why I find that really funny because they were armies that because there wasn't the rule of 3, so you had droves of warp spiders everywhere. So that's really funny.
And then we have finally one last one, which is Gangbuster. It was in at the start. They removed it. They brought it back. It's 1 point for every 6 wounds inflicted into a multi-model unit with 3 wounds or 3 wound models. So
Bulgrin, Destroyers.
all sorts of different 3 wound models. All sorts of custodes.
Yeah.
Well, custodes typically don't have big units, so kind of rules them out. But Bulgrins.
But you don't have to pick
Raids,
units, right?
Destroyers. Yeah, actually you
do
don't.
not
So,
have to
So
declare
you,
units.
MS do this.
if there's just a bunch of 3-wound models over the
Spears,
table,
I believe they're 3 wounds.
Yeah.
No, only the
No?
Exarchs are 3 wounds.
Okay,
but still,
never mind
even if you took it, there's within those small squads you still have.
opportunity
Well,
to
it says
score-
it's 3+ wound models for like a unit consisting of those, so I don't think Shining Spears would
No.
count because they have 2.
Oh yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah,
Race.
wraiths.
yeah,
Wraith-
yeah.
Racer
Right.
3
So
wounds.
there's lots of different 3-wound models out there that it's actually really good for.
This one's interesting because there's a growing trend of like so-called bully units, which take the mid-table
Yeah.
and they're like just highly durable, tough models like Terminators, Bulgrin, those type of
Zoanthropes, I think I
Zoanthropes, those type of things, and those all fall under the Gangbuster.
Not
secondary.
Terminators, but
Well,
Terminators, lol.
Great Knight Terminators, right?
Paladins, you mean?
Yeah, Paladins. There we
yeah,
go.
Perfect. Yeah.
Talking about engineers, Snelly Blue Fishboy in the chat says Shield drones love this one. I believe it. Bizarre 40k Beast says I always just use a mech gun for my engineers points.
Is mech gun multi model? Because you need multiple. You can't just take.
Well,
one.
it has the gunners and then the gun itself, so I suppose that counts, right?
If they count it, I mean, I don't actually know the interaction there.
I didn't think.
But
I didn't think they were part. They were.
You might not be able to do that, but I don't know this too. I've never actually had somebody pick a mech gun as an engineer against me. They're usually taking other secondaries against me.
Bizarre Beast, if you want to toss some more clarification on the mech gun at us at the chat, absolutely.
I'm sure.
do it up.
I'm sure the smelly fish guy there.
Yeah, mech gun.
I'm sure
Yeah,
Logan knows the
yeah,
answer
mech
to
gun
this
is just
already.
one model.
Yes,
He just responded.
Cool.
Yeah,
All right.
there you go. You can't do
So,
it.
our next question on the list here, Fabio, I'm actually going to skip this for the sake of time. John, so we've just talked about the secondaries. I know, right? You're here every week.
It's all good. No, I'm just playing. It's all good.
We just ran through the secondaries. Now, very quickly, just to recap, you're building for and denying secondaries, right? Like, you want to look at your list and you want to pick your secondaries that you think you can go for really well and do that, right? Like, what do you do when you're looking for secondaries to build or deny?
It's a tough question. I look at the players that I'm most worried about, and then I build everything around those players, and I ignore everybody else.
Okay.
So Eldar. So I'm looking at Kyle and I'm looking at Matt, and I'm saying like, how can I beat these guys? What list can I bring to beat these guys? And then I'm looking at orcs. Victor's out there somewhere. Orcs they worry me.
The heebie-jeebies.
I've said this multiple times on my own podcast that orcs are very frightening for me. And then I'm building with some other things like chaos. You always have to keep in mind chaos are out there, and they're going to be showing up like crazy. So I build my list around with those specific things in mind, with the interactions. Like, can I handle somebody that drops everything in my face turn one? Now you can't, but Gene Stealers could before. So can my list deal with that? And how can I build lists to deal with that? And guard shooting is terrible, so I don't build for killing. I build for, I'm not building pure here, but I build with the idea of denying. I like denying. I don't like when I was dabbling in Magic, I built blue-black control decks, and that's how I think of the ITC. I think of how can I dictate the game through my list? How can I make them play my game? How can I make Eldar play my game? Because normally everybody has to play the Eldar game. And just like when I played with Kilcullen, when I'm playing at Kilcullen, everybody has to play my game. You have to play the game I'm telling you to play. Otherwise, you lose.
Yeah.
And so I build my list with that in mind. So how I would do that is, if I'm playing Eldar, I can't reliably kill something every turn. So I have to basically take recon, ground control, engineer, all sorts of stuff like that. If they do have units that I think I can go after, sometimes I'll take Butcher's Bill if we have a lot of Venoms, and I've got high quality shooting hidden inside my list, which I always do. Then I can take that. I never take old school, but
Yeah, I find old school's overrated,
it's too risky.
honestly.
That's fair.
And it's basically I like taking stuff to deny. I don't like aggressive builds. I don't like playing aggressively. I play defensively. I let the game come to me. I usually like going second, even though most guard players don't. I usually like to see what people do and see how hard they can hit me, and then I start playing the game.
Then you have more information to play with.
I just like seeing how much I can take, and then
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
hit back.
it's also really good for you because since you always take ground control, having the ability to have the final movement.
yeah, you have the
It's
final
so
say in the
huge.
game.
Yeah.
And most people want to come in at you, and if you, with my other lists, have characters hidden in there. So it's like Matt was saying, it's like it's a bunch of little puppies with
Yeah.
like a bunch of wolves hidden in the center. And if you get too close to those,
They're
I'm gonna pop out, kill something really hard. I'm gonna jump
The
out,
guardsmen
kill
just
them.
divide.
They don't have to now because everything flies.
Oh.
So now I just jump over my lines, kill you, and then pop back in there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Honestly,
your list just got a lot better, eh?
Yeah, it did, especially with custos. Yeah. So I build to deny because I can't reliably kill. Before I could get away with it because maybe there wasn't like Kyle is grinding, Matt is grinding, so you see these guys playing. If they're playing as many games as me, like Kyle is keeping up on me in games, probably even more than me. I think I've played like 250 games of 8th. and I think in a couple months, Kyle's played like 100.
Yeah,
So
Kyle's crazy.
Yeah.
I have to build for that.
I know you said that Kyle's been grinding and I've been grinding, but Kyle's been grinding. Not really.
You're in all the events.
Only
You showed
one
up to all the events.
In comparison to Kyle, no one's grinding.
Only one of the players mentioned has hammocks at local gaming stores. We might be kidding. We might not. We'll leave it for you to decide. So for you then, it's all about just analyzing the local meta, who you're going to play against, building to deny them, and then scoring.
I'm always looking to hold more and force you into fights. So I'm looking. My list is built. All my lists are always built to hold more.
Yeah.
So I'm out pressuring. So ITC mission number 2 is really bad for me because it only has 3 objectives, meaning that I need to get onto that center objective and I need to force a fight there the entire game.
That makes sense.
And it gets troubling when I go up against a chaos that has plague bearers and really hard hitting combat units behind them. That it gets risky because now we're both playing the same game.
Yeah.
Except I can't shoot his stuff because his stuff is -2, -3, -4 because chaos is the same as Eldar now.
And like as you've mentioned in the past, like that prevents you from forcing your opponents to make tough decisions.
Well,
as you've said, if you're making
yeah.
your opponents make tough decisions, you're playing good Warhammer.
If you are forcing a decision onto your opponent, you're playing winning Warhammer.
Nice.
You never want to be making the decisions. You want them to make the decision. You want to force the game to them. Say, I'm putting my stuff on these 3 objectives. There's only 4 objectives. Do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Which one is you going to go for? And then you place your characters accordingly to maybe try and lure them into traps. It's a lot of
Putting them into the difficult decisions where
I've lured this guy into a trap before, and yeah.
Like, it's not a two-way street.
Yeah, and he's yeah.
So I'm going to toss the next question your way.
What's up?
John has spoken very highly of your skills with math and analyzing which units are good in the current environment with which secondaries,
pressure.
etc.
Yeah.
So how does ITC Champions missions and working with that change the game? Like, what do you need to take into account? What should you look for?
Okay, thinking of from the mission perspective.
Yeah.
You're going to want to build an army that can both kill and hold. And now it's very difficult to build an army that does both kill more and hold more. But if you build an army that you understand can maybe catch up end game where it's falling short early game, then that could be a path to success for you. Like, for example, my current build is a lot of MSU.
Minimum sized units.
Minimum sized units, sorry. Yeah, many small units, but have a lot of offensive potential that push mid-board. So I'm picking like a lot of... I try to pick only 1 killing secondary, and then that's based entirely off what my opponent gives me. So in any list I look at, you can find 1 that gives you 4. And the other 2 are going to be like behind enemy lines or recon, which I know my list can always do every game no matter what, pretty much.
So he's mentioned you've played Eldar Flyers. How does the math favor Eldar Flyers in MSU pushing mid-board?
Well, the thing that people don't realize about like how powerful Eldar Flyers are with their defensive capabilities is when you get a -1 to hit, for example, against Guard, right, with their ballistic skill 4, you're thinking, oh, a -1 to hit, I hit on a 4, now I'm hitting on a 5, that's only 1 worse, like what's the big deal? But you're only hitting successfully on 1 out of 3 dice results. Now I make that a -1, you're only hitting at only on 2 now. So now you're 33% less effective in your army.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're playing with your shooting more like 1,333 points instead of 2,000. And now if I'm playing Alatok Flyers, which are -2 to hit, now you only have 1 successful roll to get that hit. And now you're playing with 667 points of shooting into my army, which is, when you look at it that perspective, you're thinking, oh, this 1 flyer, oh, that's pretty good, just -2. It's triple as durable as a unit that doesn't have the negatives to hit.
I say a Necron flyer.
Yeah, you're denying that. Go ahead.
Nope. That was it.
You're denying those percentage points, right? Because when something goes from 1 to 2, all of a sudden it goes from 17 to like 33%, 2 to 3, 33 to 50. You're dropping that back down. Enemy lists are only, 2/3 or 1/3 as effective, and people often over-evaluate. I find in any game I've played, Magic, Warhammer, Kill Team, anything, people often over-evaluate how strong they're going to be, how well they do. They always think best case scenario, okay, I'll just do this and this and this and I've got the game solved.
Yeah.
They fail to account for like that denial math.
And then the other thing that correct me if I'm wrong, but even units that have rerolls to hit, the reroll modifiers only come into play afterwards,
Yeah,
right?
like, right.
So you have an even better chance. Those negative modifiers to hit.
You can't reroll.
You can't reroll those. So
Unless there's 2 models in the game that can. I don't.
It's-
Kilcullen or no?
No, not
Okay, so there's
Kilcullen.
only 2 models in the game that can. And that's Call and Abaddon.
Yes. So those are the only models in the game now where they have a different wording, which allows you to re-roll misses that you would normally hit. Whereas with other characters, for example, if they were hitting me on a 3, but with my -2 to hit flyer, they're only hitting on 5s, they would only re-roll the 1s and 2s because that's what they would normally miss. But,
Okay.
yeah,
so that's a huge difference because now you're not getting potential hits out of those.
That makes
that's what you're saying.
sense.
The odds are still better, right, for you.
Yeah.
So
It's huge.
that's huge.
Is there, this is a follow-up, are there factions that sort of this way of thinking or the ITC Champions Mass setup make better? I know we've heard stories about the Grey Knights list that won in Australia, even though that wasn't ITC Champions. We see like Custodians, despite having such small model count, being able to pick their secondaries, go into the mid-board, and survive. Like,
Yes.
what are some factions that are made better or worse when you look at them from an ITC perspective instead of pure base rulebook perspective?
Armies that have playstyles that favor the ITC function will obviously do better, right? So armies that can both move and kill more units than the opponent. So armies that have like a smaller model count, but they have high offensive potential and they can secure more kills, as well as moving out and securing more objectives, they're just going to do better. So for example, like an MSU army that sits back, sure, they're going to kill stuff and but they're going to be sitting back. They're not going to hold objectives. And then when you get return fire, because you're playing MSU, you're going to lose more. It might be relatively less, like points of your army, like a portion of your army, but it's going to be more units individually. And that's going to set you back on the mission. So so the ITC does help out, like elite armies like Custodies do well, because they typically play jet bike builds where they can really go out, kill something with shooting, and kill something in combat. And you're doing 2 units with 1 unit now. And that's good ITC math, right?
That's value.
It's just like Harlequins. Harlequins, I don't think they're very good in ETC, book missions, stuff like that. But in ITC, they are terrifying to play against, especially if you're a pure guard and you just have a bunch of tanks, you are so screwed. Like, and they stack up minus. They have all of them are -1 to hit. You have the lightning reflexes, -2 to hit. All their stuff has haywire. Now it's less effective now because of Doom, but it's still terrifying. They pressure the board. They're very durable. They're extremely fast, and
They jump over your screen now.
they jump over your screen now. So good luck screening those tanks.
And even if they're not killing them, they're tying them
They're
up.
always they're very very good at killing vehicles. So
If they get top of turn, they're like in your line before you even get to.
Even if they don't, they can null deploy. So they deploy the very minimum stuff on the table, and they put it all hidden out of line of sight in a ruin, and then everything advances up the table, gets 3-up invulns, and then can still shoot, can still charge. It's a crazy amount of pressure and damage. So you're playing the board, and you're playing kills, and it's very frustrating. And then on the other side of that is Tau.
Yeah.
Tau are good in the ITC, don't get me wrong. Some people will try and tell you they're not. They are top tier in the ITC, but they are much better in the ETC, where you're playing tabling. Like, Tau are perfect at how fast can you table somebody.
Die.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we're into the second half of our discussion, preparing for War 3, understanding ITC. We're into the second half hour, which means I'm going to take a quick second for a sponsor plug. I'm going to make this one as fast as possible. You heard us talking about them before. Northern Lights Terrain. They're a local business here to Winnipeg, but they ship all over. They do MDF terrain as well as accessories like painting trays, display trays, movement trays, dice towers, all sorts of things. They are wonderful to work with. They will take requests. We feature their terrain often on the streams at 40belowgaming.com and twitch.tv/40belowgaming because it's so great to put together, easy to paint, easy to work with, and they end up looking gorgeous. So that's northernlightsterrain.com, another one of our 2019-2020 sponsors.
They also do acrylics.
They do acrylics. Go to them for your acrylics needs. Do it. Do the thing. I'm looking at you, internet. Do the thing. northernlightsterrain.com. So, resetting. Part 3 of Preparing for War, Understanding ITC, Getting Ready for Planes of War in a few weeks. Everybody is getting their practice games in right about now, especially if you've been following our series and you've been building your list and painting them. Now you're looking at how to practice them. Some tips and tricks for how to practice games. And Fabio, you've been quiet so far, so I'm going to point at you first and put you on the spot.
Yeah, no kidding.
What do you do to practice? Like, what's the best stuff that's worked for you?
Repetition. It really comes down to repetition, understanding the missions, understanding what, your play style, and constantly executing and not playing I think it's safe to say never play one game, and if a unit underperforms or doesn't do what it's supposed to, just scrap it right away. You have to play. How many games do you play before you determine a unit is literally lackluster?
It's probably different for me than him.
Sure, probably, but
I'm more creative in my uses for
games.
units.
25. Okay.
Whoa, really? Okay, I
I
usually
won't give up on a unit for quite a while.
interesting. I usually give it about maybe 5 or so. I don't go as crazy as John. I thought John was gonna have a smaller number than me.
I mean, I do ask him like
You're pretty
if
cutthroat.
I'm wrong on the math, like if I think the math is one way and I just run the unit, like I really like the unit and I think that it's gonna score good on one of those secondaries and then it's just getting blown off the table, then I'll go and I'll ask somebody who's much better at math than myself, saying like, is this statistically
did I miss something?
does this match the standard deviation of where it should be, and does this match like on average what I should be getting out of it? And if the answer is no, you overestimated this, then I'm just gonna drop it.
Okay.
I usually try and space on math, but I will try and play. I'll really play something a lot.
I guess it helps
Like the
that
Valiant, I played that for a long time before I dropped it.
yeah. I guess it helps because in my cases I'm doing the math before I even play the unit.
I mean, I'm doing the math, but I'm doing it. Sometimes you find that you do it. Everybody's biased, so sometimes you'll do it without even meaning to be. You'll just add bias to it, and you won't see it until you put it on the table. I can think of somebody who did that with a very large fish model. And
Are they in the chat?
They might be.
Maybe.
Cannot confirm nor deny.
Heels and
Ano-
heels.
Another. What was the? Oh shit! Now what the other one I had? Organization when going to a table.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that is something that is just totally looked over. It's like from having a display tray with your models laid out in a way that allows you easy access to get your stuff out, whether it be cue cards or some people have all their what are the I don't even remember
Deck cards?
Yeah,
Stratagems?
Not the stratagems, the ones that you spend your CP on, like
Yeah, the strats.
The strats. Okay, so some people carry the whole stack with them all the time and constantly go through the whole stack. Which one should I use now? It's like you should know that there's only so many your army can use and utilize well. You don't have an unlimited amount of CP. You don't have every model in your army. Get rid of all the shit you're not using. Like, I find that's a big one. Like, people sit back and just, like, fan their cards, and you're just like, what are you doing? Like, for me, like, in my games, like, even on Saturday, like, there's only 7 cards I could use, and 4 that I knew I was going to use almost every game. So, like, it was those 4, then the other 3 were kind of next, but they were laid out. Everything else in its box and gone, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there might be an odd one that you pull out because when you play a certain army, but otherwise, like stuff like that, just organization, having cheat sheets if you need it, especially if there's a lot of stuff you're doing. If you have a lot of psychic powers, I think that's one that a lot of people kind of ways to move quickly. Like people think that looking online and finding tips is like it's like the whole net listing, and it's all like, oh, shame on you for doing this, but I think it's the best thing ever. You have all this extra information at your disposal. You may again, more tools in the toolbox is never a bad thing. So for me, like those are the biggest things for me. Like I've been able to go to events with armies that I've maybe played once or twice, but I've done enough research to know what to do, and I made cheat sheets for myself and broke it down to the most common denominators just so I could, still play quickly, and it's worked. Thankfully, not maybe to the best, but those are the biggest things for me.
With practice games, they're much different than actually playing games. You can't treat your practice games like when I first started. I treated every practice game like it was a tournament game, like game 5. That's the worst thing you can do. The best thing you can do is get together with your teammates. If you don't have a teammate, get on a team. I don't know, it's the best thing you could possibly do. So you get together with your teammates or whoever you're playing, and you set up a scenario, whatever mission you want to play, and you first of all, get yourself a chess clock, because you are always the slowest. I'll tell you right now, everybody sees my army and thinks I'm the slow one, and then I'm the one that pulls out the chess clock and says we're using a chess clock, and they look at me with 200 models, and they think that it's going to benefit them, and it doesn't. They end up being the one that times out, and it's because everybody else thinks that they're not slow, but until you can prove it on a clock, it doesn't mean fuck all. So use a chess clock, especially in deployment. Just time yourself. Just drop those units as fast, especially if you have a high model count. Just practice that. See how fast you can get on deployment, and understanding your opponents. And then, if you're playing a game and it's going badly, like I played a game against Kyle, probably last month or so, and I just made a position error turn 1, and then he blew up half my army. And there's no point to playing that game out.
Don't keep playing. Yeah,
there's no point to playing that
Start
game
again.
out. You just re-rack it, start again, because neither of us are learning anything. He's not learning anything. He just learned, like, oh, I can kill like 30 infantry and then melt your characters, and that nobody gets anything out of that. The point of playing your practice games is to learn.
Yeah.
So you want to set yourself up into. I personally like to set myself up into really, really bad situations and see if I can fight out of them.
Yeah. No,
which is why my win rate in practice games, I don't keep track of it, because it's pointless. If I were to keep track of my win rate in practice games, I would say it would be maybe 8%.
Yeah, because if you treated every practice game like a do or die tournament game, you're going to play very conservatively. You're going to try to play safe. You're never really going to grow yourself as a player and learn what other
push your
options you can
boundaries.
do.
You're not going to push yourself into. You're not going to see those bad spots. So in a tournament, like I've gone to a tournament and I've made a critical error in like turn 2, and I managed to fight out of it and win that game because I just kept playing and I didn't get tilted early. Whereas if I didn't practice like that, I mean, sometimes I get tilted like crazy. That happens to everybody. But the ability to then go through that and keep playing and look at the table, I might be fuming about some stupid dice roll that I did, but I'm still thinking through my head on how can I get out of this. And if you have all these practice games where you've practiced worst case scenario, you know that you can still get out of this.
Yeah, you'll take that moment and be like, I've been here before versus, oh fuck, what do
Sometimes
I do?
games can just feel unwinnable, and they're not. You can see, you can formulate a path to victory in almost every game, especially if it's early.
So like it's like you are going to make mistakes at some point always, but the more you practice, the more you give yourself a chance to make those mistakes in practice and not during a tournament.
I mean,
when it matters.
everybody makes mistakes in every single game of 40K ever, and everybody gets one rule wrong, one way or the other in every game. It just happens.
That's right.
So it's the ability to practice is to avoid those really big ones.
Well, that's the hope, right? Like always to try and minimize it as best possible.
We got a great question in the chat from AOS Coach. Shout out to you. It says, it's interesting to hear about chess clocks. What's a good amount of time for deploying in 40K? How much time should that take? And especially if you're playing a horde force, how much time should that take off your own clock?
That is a good question.
I actually find that horde armies deploy surprisingly quick because you know that you pretty much just want to be set up at the front and you're going to want to push forward because that's just what horde does.
Actually, one of the most interesting things I noticed was actually when we went down to the States, I overheard your game because I was waiting for my opponent, and you said your opponent was deploying, and you're like, I'm just going to start deploying because I'm doing the same thing, and it doesn't, like, regardless of what you do. And I thought that was really interesting because it's like, John could have waited, but to keep the game going, to keep, like, you know, more time.
It saves me time.
It saves him time too, and like,
especially on clock.
and just dropping stuff down, or I've seen people just like, you know, put a first row of guys and be like, the rest of these I'll pile them in and I'll put them up later. You know, it's just give you an idea of where they're going to be positioned, stuff like that. I would think how much time it should take. I don't think there's a firm amount of time. I think it depends. Like if your army is, it's very important to position them properly in the deployment zone, in deployment, then take that extra time there. But if you know that you're quick one after, like every turn after that, and you don't use as much time, then if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. You have half the time on your clock, so if you just have to know how to manage your half of the time. It's irrelevant where you use your time.
Yeah, the time buildup really comes in where you're not coming in with a game plan. So that's where we were talking about with the list building, where you have a game plan ahead of time. That's why John doesn't really care how his opponent deploys, because he already has a game plan to help him succeed, and he's
Like,
sticking to it.
Once your opponent hands you their list, or let's say it's game one, so you don't have information ahead of you. The first information you're going to have is when you show up to that table and you see who you're playing. If you don't know this player, and then you have if I don't know a player, then I treat them like they are probably ranked in the top 10 of the ITC, because I just give them the credit.
Yeah, the benefit of there.
Give them the benefit of the doubt.
Sure.
You can't count on somebody being bad. You just show up and say, I don't know you, so I'm going to play it like it is. So when they hand you their list, once I see that list, I already know how I'm going to deploy, or I'm trying to think of something. So while we're talking about all these secondaries and stuff, when you're picking the secondaries based on how you're going to deploy, and then the second he starts deploying. Let's say it's one of the missions where you deploy your entire army all at once, and they're doing it first. Like he saw me do, I basically knew exactly what units mattered, and I said, I don't really care what you do. I'm deploying mine the same way, and while he was deploying, I was deploying, so it gave us another 5 minutes on the clock. Though we weren't really using a clock, we should have, but it's especially for me, it's critical that I have a maximum amount of time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. Yeah.
So for me, a good amount of time, if I use 5 minutes deploying start to finish, that's good.
And he plays 120 conscripts at least.
160.
More time in your clock is never a bad thing.
Yeah.
So
but there's a fine balance here. You cannot, because if you rush it and you deploy, because you can lose games in deployment. So if you rush it, you have to have a plan, and you have to follow through that plan, and that's where practice comes in.
Yeah.
Usually, if I go up against Matt, I have some idea of how I want to deploy, and it might be wrong, but I already know where my characters are going before when I'm deploying against Matt. He says it looks like I'm spelling something in hieroglyphs to him.
Yeah, he's got his conscripts all scripted
Because
out.
none of my characters are down, so you see these holes everywhere, and then I already know.
But you've got veins going where the troops are going to drop.
So you just drop your stuff in there, but you have to have that. You have to have reps to understand how to deploy properly.
Yeah.
And the only way to learn how to deploy properly is to have somebody just smash you. Like AdMech, I had no idea that they could kill 100 infantry in one turn. Well, I learned that real quick against Kyle Thompson in Fargo.
Yeah.
And
You said you were going to take it somewhere next.
Oh, yeah. So when you're coming into these ITC games and you're looking at the deployment and you kind of have a decision paralysis, remember that the game is really coming down to hold more and kill more and what secondaries he chose. So look at, if you're doing the back and forth deployment, pay attention to the key units that you need to kill. Where are they going? And then look at where the objectives are on the board. And then think of, what's my game plan to hold the majority? So if there's 5 objectives on the table, which 2 am I going to hold probably more easily because they're on my deployment zone? And then which one is the one that I want to win the fight for and make sure that I'm getting that hold more throughout the game.
Yeah, I get that.
there's some real, your opponent can dictate how you deploy just by what secondaries he takes. If you have a knight and he takes Kingslayer on that night, or on the weekend, I had a Shadow Sword, and he took Titan Slayer on the Shadow Sword, and I had a big wall that I could hide the Shadow Sword behind. So I put it behind the wall, and I just didn't shoot it for 4 or 5 of the 6 turns, because I was perfectly happy to deny 4 points and just not shoot that thing.
That makes sense.
You can just deny stuff like that. But he can also deny. So he's like, do you really want to put that thing out in the open? I'm going to kill it. And then there's 4 points.
Speaking of forcing changes in the deployment zone, we got a great question brought up in the chat. This time by Smelly Blue Fish Boy, who points out things like snipers that do force your opponent to deploy differently. He brings up the example in a game he had against you where you hide characters. So you end up with just Yarick and Strachan being too far from your conscripts. So snipers and things that force you to deploy differently than you expected. How strong is that? Do you account for that in your deploy everything, it doesn't matter game plan?
I still deploy everything, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Because I know that he has snipers. So if I know he has snipers, I know where they can go and where they can't go, and then I just put my guys behind terrain and link everything into it. Now it forces me to play differently, obviously, because if I play normally, I'm putting my characters somewhere near the front lines out in the middle, and if I do that against Elims, he's just going to be like, that unit there, just pick that little astropath up. I mean, that's not how it actually worked, because his rolling sucked, but if you deploy your stuff wrong out in the open against a Vindicare, or 2 Vindicares, or 2 Vindicators and a Limbs, like, you're going to lose those characters fast.
Yeah, it's huge to key like anchor point units that like lynch point units, like for example Elder Farseers. I am terrified of losing Doom when I have an army that relies on Doom, or my Conclave that does Jinx. If I lose those things, I'm in big trouble because my army's all based around like getting those powers off and taking off key units per turn.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, like, you can be forced to deploy differently.
Oh, for sure.
That
Yeah,
does
I
affect
deploy
you.
differently against snipers. 100%.
You
Yeah.
have to.
You have
You
to.
have to respect
You
it.
have, because
Well,
they can roll bad, but they can roll really good. And I mean, are you gonna really play that game?
You don't want to base your entire game off of a dice roll.
No.
Never.
No.
As much as possible. I mean.
Which is ironic that we're playing 40. But
You can minimize that as much as possible.
So, Scotty40BG asks in the chat, I'm going to pretend I don't know who you are, that you weren't on the show a couple weeks ago. When the champion missions changed deployment for missions 2, 4, and 6, how did that change your thinking?
I hated it at the start until I actually started playing it. And that's typically how it is with everything. Oh my god, I hate change.
I spent
you
all
know,
this effort learning this.
Because you have to learn something new, right? It's,
Yeah. Oh man.
But then once I've gotten like 40, 50 games in on that, I play it all the time. Like
Yeah.
I play those missions all the time because
it's kind of nice just being able to drop. Your
there's
whole army too,
there's
like-
actually a whole different level of strategy that goes into these ones. There's strategy that goes into missions 1, 3, and 5 that it is completely different than 2, 4, and 6.
Yeah.
Because 1, 3, and 5 you're deploying back and forth.
So you're
and
reacting
if
to
you
each
have,
other.
If you built your list to have more units, then you can see where their key units are before you drop your key units, and that's how I used to build my lists. And then you can, you know that you have a reasonable chance of going first or second. Like the math isn't great, but it's still higher. And then with the new ones, if you roll and you choose the side, the other guy gets to deploy his entire army.
Well, he's the
first.
option to,
yeah.
Yes, or second.
or second, yeah.
And then the guy who deploys first gets to choose whether he goes first or second, which is huge. You know, that having that information when you go to set up, knowing that, let's say I have a Shadow Sword,
Yeah.
and I'm going first, most likely, against a guy with a Castellan. I'm going to put that Shadow Sword right on the table. I'm going to say, unless this guy rolls at 6, I'm going to shoot that Castellan. I'm not going to kill it because that's not how this game works, but I'm going to have a reasonable chance of doing damage to it.
Yeah.
Whereas if he's going first, I'm going to have to deploy completely differently.
Yeah. Second part of this question, this time I'm going to start with you, Matt. What are the biggest mistakes that people make when they practice?
When they practice. Probably getting too caught up in trying to make it a cutthroat win.
Okay.
And they're just focused on playing the game to force that win. They're not really thinking about their mistakes they might have made or how they were coming into the game wrong, or they're not experimenting enough with their different strategies or realizing the other ways they can function with their army.
So playing out the game sometimes is the biggest mistake you can make.
Well, you also don't want to get that gotcha. Like, you don't want to do that in a practice.
Yeah, like for example, if you're playing against a friend and you're getting a practice game and you're like, oh, I got this secret combo that's gonna win me the game. It's not. I understand like maybe that usefulness elsewhere, but like in a practice game, you can't practice a gotcha moment. That's not gonna make you a better player.
It's going to actually make you worse, because if you go to a table relying on that gotcha moment, and the player across the table
Knows
that,
it.
that you don't know
Yeah.
is a very high-end player, and he looks at your list and he goes,
I know what his gotcha is.
like,
Yeah.
Matt used to do that with the Incarn, and he tried that once with me, and he put it right out front, and he was relying on me shooting at something else, killing whatever else, and then he gets to soul burst his Incarn away, and then I can't shoot at him.
Okay.
But I've declared, there's tricks that if you go up against a good player and you're doing gotcha, you don't want
They
it.
could also bait you thinking that they don't know your gotcha. You put yourself in an awkward position and they're already 2 steps ahead of you and stuff like that, and things can just go to shit.
Yeah. Smelly Blue Fish Boy has a great point in the chat. The mistake people make is playing the same person over and over because neither of
that's
you
a good
get
point,
better.
Yeah.
Is this what part of like having a team is important, because then again you can like just play different mindsets, or does a team still create an echo chamber?
Not as much. It makes your echo chamber a lot bigger for sure.
Okay.
If there is still one, which is good, because if
Yeah.
you're playing the same person over and over with that one opponent, you get stuck on your own ideas, and then you fixate on their ideas. And then instead of building an all-comers list that's going to do well against orcs and knights at the same time, instead you're going to be building a list that only beats Tau. And then coming into a tournament, you're not going to play Tau 6 times.
So follow-up question to that then, brought up by Scotty40BG in the chat. What happens if that player has like 5 or 6 different armies that they rotate between? Do you still not get better just because
Their
it's
mentality.
against the same mind?
Yeah, same mind. I
Okay.
think it's still the same mind thing.
You're playing. Players have player habits. They have strategies. They have ways of playing that they like playing. And if you two are just playing each other, you're not getting exposed to different ideas. There's so many things to learn in this game, especially with combat. And if you were both playing, like he might have 5 different armies, but they might all be shooty armies, and you never get to see combat.
Because that's what they like playing.
Or you might be in a situation where you and your friend who've been playing together for so long don't realize you're doing so many things wrong.
Yeah.
And then when you show up to the tournament, you got to learn a whole new
You
game.
get an education.
Yeah.
You should get out there and you should play like as many people as you possibly can. And with a team that's good, like we are constantly playing each other, but we don't just want to play each other. We want to play. I will play anybody, anytime, at any system they want to play, because I just want to see how they play. I want to see their army. I want to talk about their army. I want to talk about my army.
And that's
just
not only
exposure.
John learning something new about a different mentality, he can now bring that back to other people that may have not been exposed to that same thing too. And if they're all doing the same thing, there's a lot more information being passed around. So
Makes sense.
that's really
All right. This next question is straight at you, John. Anyone feel free to jump in. Do you have a system that logs your performance between games? Like, do you keep a journal or notes, or do you have like Google Sheets where you like keep track of your performance?
No, I don't.
Why
care.
not?
Because, like I said, it doesn't matter. Like, okay, so I have a very good memory for games, so I remember all of my games, what went wrong, what went right. I will write down when I first started out, like as a new player. Totally, I had a journal. I still have that same journal somewhere in my car right now, and I would draw diagrams of every single turn I moved, where I moved, how I moved, what I did wrong, and then I would read it all the time.
Yeah.
And I would just constantly think about, well, what did I do wrong? Where could I have deployed differently? And that helped me get a little bit better, but you're only as good as the players you play against. So recording my practice games is pointless. I don't care. I literally don't care about my record in my practice games. I lose at least 80% of my practice games because I'm trying to push the envelope with all my lists, and I'll remember what worked and what didn't work, and I just will remember it. I just don't. I do have a journal, but I don't really take notes. I will come back to our team and I'll type in the chat and I'll say like how this list functioned, what it was doing wrong, and then I'll ask for math because I don't care about anecdotal evidence.
Okay.
I want hard fact. I don't care what something feels like, what something should do. Like, I want math. I want standard deviation and I want real math. And then I'll go back and I'll remember that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because there's always outliers.
Yeah,
You can't rely on those.
It's just reps, and I don't care. I just want to see things, and I'll try and remember them.
Yeah, for myself, I actually hold on to my score sheets. As long as I'm still testing the same list. So I'll hold on to my score sheets from tournaments. So I noticed that my list I was playing before was very similar, but instead of having this combat element with like these Shining Spears and the Nova Lance Autarch that I'm using now, before I had Rangers that would deep strike in the backfield scoring behind enemy lines, or pop up in a spot where I just needed that recon point. And it was more of a defensive reactive list, and it was still good. I had a third flyer in there too, but I realized that I was losing the mission on Killmore and the bonus, and I couldn't score the bonus because I didn't have enough forward pressure. And if I ran into something like Magnus or Demon Princes or Talon Masters or Custody Shield Captains that would jump at me, they would take the middle, and then I would start falling behind, and then I would be struggling to catch up and beat them at the mission at the end. So following that trend, looking at my score sheet, I saw where I was falling behind turns 1, 2, and 3, and then catching up 4, 5, 6. But the problem is, I also wasn't focused enough on making sure I got that 6th turn to make sure I scored the victory. So that's why chess clocks are important.
Chess clocks are critical if you want to go 6.
Yeah, so I looked at those trends of where I was falling behind in the mission, and then that's where I realized I needed a countercharge element in my list, and that's what really helped push it over the edge. and John and Fabio both felt it over the weekend.
Makes sense.
Thanks, man.
Would you guys say that keeping a game journal or keeping your score sheets from your tournaments is more useful for new players than experienced ones?
100%. Okay, so everybody's different. So for me, I have a very good memory. Like I can just recite all of my tournament scores. I know what I scored when I scored it. It's just how I learn. So I don't need a journal. But when I was new and there were so many rules coming at you and so many different codexes, I would write it down, and I would just by writing it down, it would help me visualize things, and I would draw the whole map, and I would label every unit, and I would draw like battle plans of where my units move, why I move them there. That's what you have to do to be good, and I'm not good yet, but you keep putting work in like that, and you're gonna get there eventually.
Yeah.
One day you can be like Matt.
Yeah, that's definitely something people don't think about. They don't think about the geometry of their list. Whereas when I'm talking about that, is like how your list is able to move together and get you places to play the game.
Yeah, lots of people often they have these cool combos, right? There's lots of combos in 40K, but people don't actually, when you put it on a table, how it functions and how to get all those units syncing together in one place at one time to function the way they are supposed to. On paper, it might look great, but in reality, with all these things coming at you,
how many of those do you see? How many on paper combos look so good?
I mean, I've built
flat.
literally hundreds of lists that are on paper looked great, and I'm like, I'm hyped about this, and then I'll throw it in the chat, and they'll just be like, that is pure dumpster trash.
It.
Garbage, man, garbage.
You've just created a dumpster fire.
Hammering on this for just one more question. Again, the series is aimed at new players, so let's say I'm just showing up. I haven't played in anything bigger than an RTT before. I'm starting a game journal for my custodies because I've never played with less than 300 bugs. What are some best practices that I should do for a game journal?
You probably want to write down what you played against, what secondaries you took. If you're playing ITC, you probably want to write down your secondaries. Write down their secondaries, and like probably what Matt was doing, keeping your score sheets, or just keeping, like my journal has every single game I've played just ticked out. You can't really make sense of it, but you can kind of tell, and you just look at those and understand that where you could have maximized, like, am I picking the right secondaries? Am I picking the wrong secondaries? And then if you can remember your deployments, write them down, draw diagrams of how you deployed, and draw the diagram of how they deployed, and who hit first, who hit harder, what you lost, what you expected to lose, and then how the game went for you. Like, what were you thinking before the game?
Even just
write down what
pictures,
you were thinking before the game.
Just take a bird's eye picture as much as possible.
I take lots of pictures of, like, when I'm trying to help teammates out. I was doing this with Eric Singer just recently. So he's trying a very similar list to mine, and basically every time I saw something that he messed up on, I just took an overhead and then I sent it to him afterwards and explained. You draw through it and you explain it to him. Hey, this is how you should function. This is what you did instead.
Kind of like a highlight or a replay on football or something.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
Watching film.
Sorry?
Anything to add to that?
No, I don't think.
Alright, cool. So lastly then, on this topic, we've already talked about how being part of a team helps. It helps expand like the minds you have access to and sort of the number of brains you have applied to a topic. So I'm going to switch gears here. I'm sorry, Matt. But I know you guys use a program called Vassal to get your games in. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I don't think Matt even plays it. No.
Oh,
I have a terrible laptop, and I've been avoiding it like the plague. So.
Okay, so hit us with some Vassal knowledge. What's Vassal? How do you use it?
It's a free program online. It has all sorts of different games on it, board games, whatever you want, but it has a 40K version, so you can go on there. It has all of the models and stuff. It has none of the rules or anything like that, so when you're playing this, it's basically, you just have to know the rules.
Right, so from my understanding, it's like a top-down view of
2D.
like a sort of like a pixelated like bitmap sort of image that you move icons around and you talk out the game over a voice call.
Yeah.
With whoever you're playing, right?
Yeah. You have little they do actually have the models. That they'll have the models that look like as close as possible to the models, and you just move them around in a computer simulation, and you just play the game out like that really quickly. It's an easy way to get practice games in. Like Ryan, he's my co-host to my stream or my podcast I do. He lives on a salt mine in Regina, or outside of Regina, so we'll never get to play, but he wants to play me and I want to play him. He won the last GT we went to. I didn't get to play him, and he knows I'm showing up to Plains of War, so he wants to see what kind of garbage I'm playing. So he has an idea. You, as a teammate, you have an idea of what should work, but you don't know until you put it on the table against that person.
Absolutely.
And like that's why Kyle he plays like dozens and dozens of games, and he tries to play against me, he tries to play against Logan, he tries to play against Matt, and especially Oryx, because you have an idea of how your list should function, but you don't know until somebody puts that list down in front of you and then goes hard against you.
Yeah.
So Vassal is great for that, because then we can just play over online, and it's really simple to use. Once you play 1 or 2 games, it's free. So what more can you get? It's a good tool for testing new lists before you buy units.
Before buying,
Yes.
That's
very good for that.
Yeah, for sure.
How often would you guys say you get in games of Vassal versus physical games on the tabletop?
Well, Logan tries to do it every day, but we do not allow. We do not do that. I probably, with my new list, I just refuse to do it. I can't do it. There's so many models. It takes too long to do it. Ryan keeps wanting to play me, and I'm just telling him no. I will not do it. But other teammates are like Logan and Ryan play. I want to say like once a week, maybe more.
Interesting.
It does have value in allowing you to play people who are outside of your local reach, and then just having the access of playing anytime, anywhere with someone, because you can just walk downstairs or go to your computer room or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely not for everyone too, because a lot of people play 40K for the tactile experience, right? And that's definitely one of the reasons why I play the game over like a video game somewhere.
Someone across the tabletop and have an interaction in
And
person.
being able to touch
push
things.
models and
Yeah, it's really just a testing source, really.
Right.
Like I like using it for testing models. When I was doing my Valiant idea, I didn't want to buy a Valiant.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I was just testing the Valiant out there.
Do you guys play all like? I know in 7th when I like a lot of games when I was big into traveling. So like, it was usually when I was play testing, it was play 2 turns. We basically we played maybe best of 5s. We played the first 2 turns, and basically by that point maybe 3 turns depending if it was really close. But generally we found by the end of 2 there was kind of you had an idea of what was happening.
Right.
So now I know 8th is a little different, but would you like? Is there a point like in Vassal? Is there ever a thing like okay, we only need to go to turn 3 because by that point we kind of know what's happening, and then we can start again, or we can call it for the night. Is there anything like that, or do you find like there's some times where you have to play your whole game out?
I mean, unless something has gone critically wrong for me personally, I have to play the whole game out.
Okay.
Unless I'm playing unless I just make a terrible mistake, I have to play the game out because I'm picking ground control.
Right, you're more in
4
game
points at the end, and unless like things are just like really bad for you, and sometimes people have those games where all your rolls are just garbage, and like you perils on every psychic ability. There's no point in playing those ones out.
Yeah, no.
I mean, sometimes there are. Sometimes you'll say like, I actually do want to play this out and see how I can still function without these psychers. But usually you go like another turn or 2, and then you're just like, all right, I see how this is gonna go.
Yeah.
So especially in person, you just try to avoid the gotchas. You do not play gotcha moments with your teammates. It's gonna really piss them off, and then nobody's learning anything. So you want to. If I will play against Matt, and I see him make a mistake, like even in the RTT, he moved to, was it your Autark or?
Yeah, I moved a model over to attack something that I forgot was in combat because I couldn't see the other half of the model with all the models in combat with it behind the wall.
I take my Shadow Sword and my Tank Commander into a combat with a single or two
Two
Kabbalite warriors.
Kabalite warriors taken hostage.
So I
ripped
had
from their
my
venom.
entire army pretty much wrapping these two guys, and he moved his autarch out right in front because he was going to shoot that tank.
Yes.
And then basically he didn't see that it was in combat, so I was like, just move it over there. Like, I'm just going to...
And John didn't have to do that, but that's like a sportsmanship thing between teammates.
I mean, like, that's a gotcha thing. He did. I knew what his intention was, and I had asked him when he was doing it, and I told him, "Hey, you can't attack this," but he didn't really understand what I was saying, and he basically told me what he was intending to do. And I'm like, well, there's no point.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get points like this, so I'm just gonna like put it where you would have actually put it. And you do that in practice a lot. In tournaments, I'm not gonna give just anybody that. Like sometimes I will just, if it's a close game, you're not getting that. I'll give you a take back, yeah, but I'm not giving you something critical.
Yeah, like, no, that makes sense. I think that's fair.
I mean, if somebody has a bunch of stuff in Deep Strike, and then he forgets about it, I'm gonna tell him. Unless he is somebody I don't like, then fuck him.
Oh jeez. All right. So Matt, you're not playing a list that's going for ground control.
No.
From my experience against Eldar Flyers, they usually win the game in the first 2 turns. So how often, or how long did your practice games go? How far do you play them out for?
I feel I'm being stereotyped as an Eldar Flyer player. I only have 2 in my list.
Okay. So this is the information I was given ahead of the cast.
That's because you're
As
listening to John.
Eldar
you do have
player.
flyers.
Yeah.
How long do you play your
a lot of
practice
units
games
with the
out
fly
to?
keyword. So.
I typically play until you reach the swing point where one player is failing to kill enough to swing the game back into like an equilibrium point.
Okay.
So once like one player is pretty much like, think of it as like an arm wrestle. Once that one person gets to like that point, you know that you're gonna win, and you're not gonna pull like that Arnold Schwarzenegger moment where you're
Yeah.
flipping it back.
Okay.
that doesn't happen in 40K.
All right. So that concludes part 3 of preparing for war. This one was about understanding ITC. We had 2 of the best ITC players in Canada here to, talk about how they practice, how they grind, and to answer your questions. If you have any more for the duration of the show, please hit us. We'll be able to answer them as much as we can, but right now, we've got a big announcement. Fabio, take it away.
So if you are still with us, the big announcement that we are letting out of the bag now is that day 2 of Plains of War, we have an RTT in the same venue. It is called the Double Down RTT. It's the one day, so June 2nd. It's 3 games. They run in tandem with Plains of Wars 4, 5, and 6. They're going to be simplified missions. It's anyone can join. It's $25 to just play the one-day event. It has a separate awards, and then it's free for anyone in POW that may have had just a terrible first day and feel like dropping and trying their luck in the RTT on day 2. So that's kind of what's up. Tomorrow the tickets will go on sale. Obviously, how many spots available are determined by how many drop from POW. Those players will have first priority in that event if they choose to go that way. And then filling out the field will be anybody registering separately. Yeah, that's kind of it. I think we got a lot of feedback on the event on POW, and some people thought it was just too expensive. They couldn't do the 2 days and stuff. So we thought, well, if we have the extra space, we'll have the tables there, so we may as well maybe cater some people that can't do the 2 days. So
Yep.
We'll have both. Now, obviously, we can't stream both. We're only going to be streaming POW. And, there's a few things that players that are in POW get that the Double Down players won't. But otherwise, none of the awards cross over, other than Best in Show. As long as you're there with the same army on day 2, your Best in Show, you still have the opportunity to win the Best in Show in Plains of War. But otherwise, otherwise, for all the other awards, if dropping day 2, you won't. There's no chance you'll be in contention for those. But yeah, so it's just something else to add. So hopefully, caters to some people, and yeah, I think it'll be pretty good. The missions are pretty straightforward. They're kind of the same. It's every player turn it's kill one, hold more, kill more with the bonuses, and then there's only the big difference is there's just no secondaries. So we've eliminated the secondaries to kind of streamline it, and then there's the secondaries are I think the old school 4, the First Strikes, the Slay the Warlords, the Line Breaker, and Last Blood or whatever. So way more simplified, but yeah, just something else to do for guys that maybe want to go that route. So
I know I've had those moments in tournaments where it's just like, this is not going to be a thing. I'm going to win. I don't want to spend the mental bandwidth. I don't want to be frustrated. So this is just a day 2 sort of classic side event. If you've been to like Magic Grand Prixes or Magic Fests recently, it's the same sort of thing. You can drop from POW, no penalty, sign up for the Double Down Rogue Trader tournament, get a shot at taking something home from the weekend, and still get in a whole bunch of games, playing 40k against some really good people at the Holiday Inn, Airport Polo Park. Tickets are $25 if you aren't a POW player, and it's free if you are a POW player. They do go on sale on the website at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Did I do that right?
Yep, and all the information's already up on the website, so if you want to go, you just go to events, the drop down, Double Down has its own, and it's all spelled out there, so.
We hope to see some of you. Go ahead.
I gotta say, what annoys me is that people are complaining about the price of Planes of War. This city, you don't get it. This is the average price for a tournament. I have paid upwards of $140 for a 5-round event. This is not expensive. It's what is it, $90?
Yeah.
It's $90 for 2 days of 6 games with prize support and all of that stuff in a very good venue. This is just an average thing for a 6-round event in a big enough venue to have as a major. This is not overpriced. This is pretty much competitive with any other event you'll ever go to if you were to actually leave the city sometime. And it's a bit annoying to hear people complain about the price when that is what you have to set the price at.
No, but there's the other aspects too, right? There was the some people can't commit to 2 days for family for whatever reason.
The 2 days thing, I get. Like,
so that was a big one. So that's why we tried to like do the 1 day thing. But yeah, no, I agree. I've traveled, and same thing. I thought 90 was a reasonable price.
Is the going price for events if you.
It could have been cheap. I still could have put it cheaper, but so I know I'm going to go a bit of a tangent here, but I had to go at 90 because we only had 40 players at each event. So I had to assume to do everything, I had to assume I'm only going to get 40, which is why I had to stay at that number. Because if I dropped it to 60 or 70, I would have need to guarantee 10, 20 more players, which was already a gamble. So that's where that, so that's the problem, right? If I would have had 60 people sign up in the first, or at least register on BCP in the first 3 weeks, well then I could have then you could start looking at doing different things and maybe adding lunches in and stuff, because then there's that extra there is a surplus of way more than what you expected, but you have to play it that way just to break even. So but anyway, that's the
I know I've jumped in on a bunch of our admin chats, and Fabio's heard me say this a lot, is that to be a successful TO organization, you need to run events for all kinds of players. And there's going to be players who are going to want to drop out of POW, who just still deserve to have games that they can play. And there's going to be players who are a little bit intimidated by Planes of War, or just can't commit to the six games in 2 days. And why not, if we have the space and the time and the opportunity, provide an event for them as well. And the Double Down RTT is going to do that.
And hopefully going forward, it's maybe gets their toes wet, and maybe next year they'll be at the major, right?
I definitely like the second day arc. Like a lot of events in the United States do that.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
People if you can just have terrible first days and just be like
exactly.
And just reset, play another one.
Yeah.
And get a better ITC score there, or just have fun. You just go and drink the second day, or like you said, some people have kids, some people have all sorts of life commitments that you can't commit to like 2 full days.
Yeah, it's full. Like we start at 9, we end at like 7:30.
So I get that.
It's pretty intense.
Offering an RTT the second day is actually it's a good way to get new players in too.
That's the hope, right? If players that are maybe hesitant about committing to a full 2 days, if they want to jump in on a 1-day event, get a feeler, maybe then it's something to look forward to next year and be like, okay, I want to try and commit to the 2 days and do the marathon. But
Makes a ton of sense.
so we'll see. So that's the news. Double Down RTT is a 1 day, 3 games, day 2 of Plains of War.
Nice. Commitment's not an issue for Bizarre 40K Beast. He just dropped in the chat that he's dropping 4 digits on plane, hotel, and staying. So cheers to you, bud. We can't wait to see you.
Sick that most of that is a
Plains
flight.
of War. Yeah, I know.
Like that's
the
honestly.
guy, is that the guy from BC?
Yeah.
Kelowna, yeah. He's
That's
bringing works, he's
honestly,
gonna
man.
roll it.
That is the craziest thing. Like in the States, even you can get flights and travel so much cheaper to within the States.
Well,
Yeah.
And in Canada, it's just brutal.
if that guy's coming in if he's coming in early and he's got spare time, I want to play him beforehand. My entire team would love to play you. We love the fact that guys come in from anywhere else. Like anytime we get a chance to play against somebody from out of this province, we'll take. Like if you want to play games beforehand, we're down.
You heard it here from Bizarre Beast. Message us, message these guys, set up some games beforehand. We can't wait to see you at Plains of War, June 1st and 2nd, Holiday Inn Airport Polo Park here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Tickets available for $90 or $40belowgaming.com. And if you feel like it, there's the Double Down RTT on the second day. Tickets available for $25 if you haven't signed up for Plains of War, and free if you have signed up for Plains of War. That's it for the show. We're hitting 2 hours, so we're going to go through our sponsors real quick. See you again next week. I'm going to take the left side of the list and roll through them real quick because I know I've punished Fabio enough times asking him to read a whole column by himself. So our presenting sponsor for 2019 and 2020 is Game Night Games and Cool Stuff here on Osborne in Winnipeg. They are fantastic. We play Kill Team there every Friday. We play Bunker Busters there once a month. There's guys there every weeknight playing Warhammer.
much, yeah.
They are fantastic hosts. We cannot say enough good things about them. Pre-order Kill Team Elites through them because I'm a sellout. Frontline Gaming we've talked about. Northern Lights Terrain we've talked about. Manitoba Model Soldier Society are a wonderful group of people. They're going to be coming through and judging our painting at Plains of War and later in the year at Twin Eagles. If you want to know how to win the painting part of the competition, go back and watch our previous episodes on youtube.com/40belowgaming. We've got part 2 of Prepare for War called Painting and Winter, where we go through the rubric in detail and tell you how you can get those points. Holiday Inn Airport Polo Park is another sponsor. That's the host of Plains of War. That's where you can just give them a whole bunch of money for giving them us a whole bunch of space. Like, let me tell you, if you sign up with the hotel code
that'd be
Plains
funny,
of
actually.
War, you get 30% off the price of your ticket. It's a fantastic deal. Second side of the list. I'm just on a roll now. I'm just
Sure,
gonna
yeah,
take
you
this.
go. You man,
I'll
you're
take a
you're
break.
crushing
You
it.
know what? Seventh Forge Studios is out in Alberta. You've seen the Night Lords list that showed up at the last Plains of War and took Best in Show. They are a wonderful commission painter. They've got a podcast, Favorite of Chaos. Make sure to check them out. You've been on it. Check out that episode. Mock him. Don't mock him. He's a good person. Battlefall.
Sometimes.
You can see...
He's actually coming out again.
Matt
Posey? Yeah, Matt Posey's coming out again.
That's phenomenal. So players from BC and Alberta are coming to Plains of War. Do not miss out. Battle Foam is a feature sponsor again for us. You can't see it on that camera, but we've got the Pack 720s and the foam toppers ready to give away at Plains of War. You spend so much time and money and effort and investment on these models, you want to protect them. You want to go with Battle Foam. Best Coast Pairings, we talked about them. They make everything easier. They are sometimes the spine of our organization, especially in the middle of the day when it gets frustrating and we're inputting scores and everything could go haywire, but it doesn't because of Best Coast Pairings. CM Engrave is doing that trophy right there. Some of these plaques right here, they have been fantastic partners for us the last couple of years. We cannot speak highly enough of them. Come and win their stuff. I want that stuff out in Brandon.
Nice follow-up.
It's almost like I'm a professional here, the Segways thing.
Kill that
I
segue.
want that stuff out in Brandon. It's an amazing store. You guys are running a doubles tournament at PrairieCon, also hosted by I Want That Stuff, in June. If you're ever in Brandon, if you're driving through Brandon on your way to Winnipeg to Plains of War, check out I Want That Stuff. Pick up your last second purchases there. We cannot speak highly enough of I Want That Stuff. AYBonline.com. sponsors all of our, well, not all of our podcast gear, but our audio gear and everything. They have been friends of ours for many years. This would not be possible without AYBOnline.com. Baseline 34 is happening this weekend at the Earl Grey Community Center. Check out their streams at twitch.tv/AYBOnline. Make sure you go and support them because they're another organization that's all about the local gaming scene, local tournaments, and making sure people like us have places to go and do our thing.
A viewer named Scotty40BG in the chat just said to remind you to breathe.
No.
Don't know who that is.
Breathing is something humans do. I don't need to do that. Lastly, we were joined today by John Kilcullen and Matt Dushnisky of the Salt Miners. They are two of the top 10 ITC players in Canada, and they have a podcast. Where can they find you guys?
Oh, I got a free
We can be found on iTunes. Just search up the Salt Mine. That's me and another person called Ryan Mandrake.
I'll be on there eventually.
He'll be on there
Nice.
eventually.
Yeah.
He
Maybe.
lives on a salt mine.
We're all. It started with our group, and it's based off of me and Ryan's experiences. We're trying to build a team, and it's been a great experience so far.
Is it focused like on competitive play and grinding out those
It-
points, or
it's-
is it like
it's
just
focused-
general hobbying?
It's not focused on general hobbying, though Ryan is a very good hobbyist. He's won many paint awards and best overalls, so it's more focused on team atmosphere. It's something that you really don't think of when you play this game, but
Yeah.
being part of a team is such a great way to enjoy this hobby, and especially tournament play. It just ups that level.
Yeah.
Everybody's you have help. You have it builds a community around you.
Builds motivation to keep
Yes.
doing it.
Yeah, it keeps the fire
Traveling,
going,
it
man.
cuts
Keep you
costs when
accountable.
traveling, when you go in groups. A lot of stuff.
It's just been an overall positive experience when we all joined forces and started
It's really fun having a tribe and then building your own jokes. Like the last place Salt Miner, every event gets called a pepper digger.
Nice. All right. Well, Bizarre 40K Beast in the chat says he's been listening to you and he loves your guys' banter, so that's fantastic.
It is good. It
He's
is-
gonna be
I'm-
there Friday night, so make
Maybe
sure you
I'll
make some
unlock the room
arrangements.
for you guys. Maybe.
Maybe. All right. So these are the Salt Miners, Matt Dushnisky, John Kilcullen. Go search the Salt Mine on iTunes for their podcast. This has been Dusty Auspex, Season 6, Episode 7. If you're not rolling ones, you're cheating. Fabio, do the thing.
Oh, that's why you gave me this.
That's why I gave you that.
Signing off. Peace.
I'm hitting the button now.